Before was the appetizer, this is the main course. After half a year of promotion for Dragon Ball Super Broly, tons of media appearances and conventions, plus recording for the Dragon Ball Super TV show, please welcome back welcome to part 2 of the interview, and welcome back the definitive voice of Goku for the past 2 decades now. Welcome back, Sean Schemmel. Hello.
Hey, hi, Geekdom. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm just I'm dealing with all the decompression of the premiere and the aftermath of everything, and getting ready for the holiday, and I'm taking a little bit of a break. I'm pretty worn out.
Well, yeah, because you're doing the Broly movie and you're doing Super at the same time, or you were at the same time.
Yeah,
and
it was.
Tournament of
Yeah,
Power has a lot of Goku. There's lots of Goku in this arc.
well, we're heating up on the Tournament of Power. I think I'm in the 90s now on the episodes. In fact, I know I am, and we'll definitely be. We just recruited Frieza.
Oh,
so
did Chris do his part yet, or well, we can't talk about that, can we?
I don't know if he has or not. Everybody's it's public knowledge. Chris is dealing with some health issues that are pretty serious.
Right.
I can say, and I certainly hope I don't offend my other castmates. I'm sure they'll agree, because everybody did a great job in the movie. But I really feel like Chris in particular deserves a MVP or Academy Award for Best Actor in that movie, and that's goes with saying that everybody else in the movie killed it, but Chris Ayers particularly brought a Frieza performance that was to me a whole level higher than even his other amazing performance in Resurrection F. So I particularly enjoyed his performance in the movie.
Yes, everybody,
a lot.
go check out the movie. It's out January 16th.
Yeah.
Fandango has tickets available in some areas, but they're going fast. I've already heard of first and second day sellouts. So y'all gotta get.
Exciting.
Oh, dude, they're gone in some big markets. They are.
Gone.
I
I don't keep track until we start seeing ticket sales come in, and I check to see how many theaters it's in, and we check against other dubs. We usually watch what I do is, and me and a couple of my castmates watch the ticket sales, the total sales for dubs. So we're looking to be like for Japanese dubs in particular. Like I think we beat a Miyazaki film for Resurrection F. We beat somebody. We were like in 7th place for the highest grossing anime dubs. So I look at it from that perspective as well.
This will surpass that.
Easily. Oh yeah. It would be. I can't even. I think if Funimation or Toei said, guess what? We're not going to release the movie, there would be riots in the streets and countries destroyed, and which would never happen. But I'm saying that's a weird way of saying how popular I think this and how good this movie is. I am personally blown away with it.
And it does have replay value, because I will say this: when you see the final fight in the film, I'm not going to spoil it.
Right.
With a big final fight, it's so visually insane that you almost miss what happens. There's too many things going on the screen at once, so you want to come back again and again to see it, so you can catch all the little nuances that they threw in there. There was a lot of stuff going on.
Oh, there's a lot of stuff going on. We had to slow it down to record. I had to slow down for the fight sequences. I had to slow it down to record, and I record the picture in real time all the time, and I don't ever slow anything down. And I had to slow the movie down. It was really, really challenging. Chris and I joked that we were afraid the movie didn't have replay value because it was so intense, but then we reminded ourselves that we were both aged 45 and 50 respectively, and that if we were 18 years old, we'd probably get so charged up from the movie we'd watch it several times in one day. So if you're 45 or 50 or something, you might not be able to handle more than one viewing of this movie. But if you're a young one, you can watch it multiple times, and I do still feel like you should avoid caffeinated beverages or anything that makes you pee. Or make sure you go to the bathroom. It is so I mean, I've made a lot of urination jokes, but I'm only half jesting when I say that I really think your head's going to explode and you might wet yourself. That's I'm being using hyperbole.
Well, what were those 3 things you said that you wanted from the audience? Goosebumps, urination, and fun, right?
Fun. The urination is you metaphorically urinating yourself, that it's so good, with some fear in there that you might actually do it. I know for me, I made sure that I didn't drink anything before I saw it for the premiere, because I didn't want to get up and have to go to the lobby. And also, I knew it was going to be intense. But I didn't know it was going to be that intense, because I didn't see the final mix until that was my first time seeing it, final mix with everybody acting in it. I saw a lot of it with different actors here and there, but not the full cast and not all their scenes. And not even all my scenes. So it was really, there's going to be I think there's going to be more buzz than Al Roker saying super Funimation. And
well, hey, he actually pronounced it right.
I know.
He did.
Technically, he pronounced it right. That's true.
Yeah. Did they ever? I want to ask you real quick. Did they ever consider changing it to Cyan for Kai? Because I know for Kai they went back and changed a lot of the original dub changes. They went more accurately. Did they ever consider going back to Cyan, or is the pronunciation of Saiyan just too like ingrained in people?
Well, I'm wondering if there was no discussion about it as far as I know. And correct me if I'm wrong, isn't in Japanese, isn't it Saiyajin, like with a slight J?
Yeah, it's Saiyajin, okay. But but that's because Jin is like the word they use for a race, like Majin or Namek-Seijin. But Saiyan is actually supposed to be. In fact, Horikawa even sings Saiyan in one of his songs that came out in Japan. But the Funimation, or actually it was before you even were on the shows, the original Funimation cast, they called it Saiyan, and I guess it just stuck. I don't know.
Well, yeah, but when you said the Saiyajin thing, so wait, I didn't get my question answered. So it's not, I mean, you think I would know this, but I'm just so used to reading the English scripts and saying Saiyan.
Right.
I thought, I guess maybe when I was listening to it in Japanese and I hear them say Saiyajin, they're not saying Saiyan there. They're saying something else that's a variation of Saiyan.
No,
something.
No, that's the original phrase for Saiyan. Yeah, Saiyajin. Yeah, that's
Saya.
Oh,
okay.
It means people of the Saya, which is like
right.
Yeah.
Okay, so like Gaijin or whatever. Okay, so
yes.
So okay, so well, if that's the case, why do they say Saiyan in Japanese instead of Saiyajin, or do they always say Saiyajin?
No, they say Saiyajin in the show, but when they're singing in English, like, do you know how sometimes?
Oh, okay, yeah. I didn't understand.
In fact, in the movie when Broly starts fighting, you hear the guy go Saiyan power, even in the dub, and I was like, hey, what is this? You know?
Oh yeah. Well, if it was music, Saiyan power. Who said that?
The guy who did the voiceover. Remember the go Broly. That dude.
Oh, that came from Japan. That is a is a song. Yeah,
and that's
that wasn't one of our cast members.
When you start fighting Broly, you can hear him say Saiyan power when he does the mouth blast. I'm not
okay.
Yeah, and it's crazy that it actually made the dub.
Yeah. I think the Saiyan thing came from my old producer who
Barry.
I never agreed with a lot of his artistic choices. And because I remember he explained it to me when I was asking how to pronounce it my first day at work or whatever. He's like, yeah, we call them Saiyans. It's just Saiyan. And I was looking at the I in there going, that doesn't look like Saiyan to me. But I wasn't going to argue with him because it was my first day at work.
Right. Yeah, he's kind of a redneck type guy from what I understand.
Well, I mean, he's definitely smart. And he's definitely got a business acumen. And he's definitely not an idiot. I just feel like he came from a American producer mentality that was similar. And look, I don't blame him. And I understand it, and 4Kids is really guilty of this, where, for those of you who are hardcore Japanese anime fans, you guys are going to be like, I get this stuff. It's great. I watch it all the time. But for an average American in 1999 who is not inundated with Japanese culture, style, or anime, even the subtlest of things can be very confusing. And, producers are taught, make it simple, keep it easy. It's the reason we call Krillin instead of Kuririn.
Yeah, which actually started in the Spanish dub. They called him Krillin first, and then I guess they took it. Yeah.
Well, I don't know if we got it from Spanish dub or what. If that's, or maybe maybe Barry got it from that idea. But basically the idea is that kids sitting down. I've always felt like this type of thinking and producers, and it's part of American culture to some degree, has always been really insulting to small children as a fun side story.
Thank you. I've been saying that for years.
Well, here's the thing. Well, the other thing I don't like about it is, why are you going to make my show dumb if that kid's dumb? How about we make the show smart, and maybe that'll help that kid get smarter? Meaning, they're not, look, not everybody's with the same intelligence, and I get there's some, dumb kids that don't get it, and I don't, have anything against those people. I have, sympathy for anybody who's having a hard time understanding something, and I'm guilty of that myself a lot. But I guess what I'm saying is like, I remember I was working in a puppet theater. And I used to work in a marionette theater, and I always, when I taught music, I always talk to kids like they're adults, meaning I use a tone of voice and I use language in order to challenge them, to force them to ask me what that word means or whatever. So I don't go, okay, kids, these are 18 puppet strings, and it's on a 36-inch. And what we do with the strings, like this whole talking to kids like they're idiots, and I'm talking to like 3 or 4 and 5-year-old kids. One thing I know about little kids from my own memory as a little kid is I remember having a lot of prenatal memories and a lot of memories as a child where I couldn't speak English, but I could understand English.
Right.
And I remember thinking, why is that person talking to me like I'm an idiot? but not in those exact words. But I'm like, okay, because why are they talking to me that way and they're talking to that person the other way? And it always made me not trust humans, adult humans, when they would go, okay, so mommy's good, like in third person. So I'd be doing a puppet theater show, and we would do a post show where we explain how the puppets work, and literally in full of an audience in front of 3-year-olds and up, 2 and 3-year-olds and up, and there's a lot of 3 to 5-year-olds in there. I'd say, okay, ladies and gentlemen, and I would talk, a little bit slower, but basically I would just go, all right, these are 18 strings that control them on the nose, hands, and feet, and I would just talk to them like they're people, and kids will raise their hands and they'll ask intelligent questions.
Kids
and
are not stupid.
They're not stupid. And I had a German couple from Germany come to me at the birthday party after we would host birthday parties at this puppet theater I worked at. And he goes, I like the way you talk to the children. You don't talk to them like the idiots. You just talk to them like the people. Like most Americans do not do this. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know why that. They're just little people is what they are. And they're giant sponges. And you're more stimulating to a young mind when you intrigue them and confuse them and give them room to ask questions than you are when you condescend to them and keep information from them. So I take issue with the whole, what I call Pokemon formula. Although when you're a producer who's trying to sell a strange show to a bunch of kids who've never seen something like this before, and you're looking at making a lot more money than you would if you just sold it to the anime niche market, you're going to change some things like that. Now, luckily, thank God for Funimation and them changing their general approach to anime a long time ago. They've been doing dubs very much as close to the Japanese as possible for a good number of years now, which me and Michael Sinter-Nicholas and when I worked for him, and Michael's attitude has always been that way. And I say I can take it a step further, and I know I haven't for many years no longer agree with just, if you're doing like for example, a Japanese teen show and all the girls in the show are talking like this, I don't agree with casting like that anymore. And I did some of that when I was a director. I would cast that way, or casting the teenage boys to sound like they're quasi real high and light. I don't agree with that anymore. If we're gonna keep it Japanese, but also make it appealing to American teenagers, they need to sound like American teenagers. And my voice sounds nearly identical to where I've got recordings of me in high school, nearly identical to where I was when I was 18, and I'm 50 years old. My diction's a little bit different. My attitude's different. My, what I talk about is different, but the pitch, my voice has, changed, stayed very the same. So I'm digressing a little bit, and I know we got a lot of questions to get to, and I got to remind myself to not, we're already 16 minutes in, and I go on tangents.
No.
And I feel bad. Anyway.
No. People love your tangents, but I didn't mean to interrupt you, but yeah, no. And I think the old Z-dub, when you came back to do Kai, it was that mentality. The Z-dub has a lot of nostalgia, and it certainly brought a new audience.
Oh, it's great.
Yeah, but the Kai dub was like, okay, now this is like, it's a different era. It was like
I'm an artistic purist, and so I'm like, and I've always been that way. And so I'm like, and I also know, first of all, I have a soft spot in my heart for anime fans or anime nerds, because even though I didn't watch a ton of anime growing up, I watched a few pieces here and there. My spirit and my general nerddom is very much that flavor. And that is my experience with anime fans in general is that they're very intelligent, very emotionally sensitive, and oftentimes have awkward social skills due to maybe difficult home lives, which is why I think Dragon Ball is so popular. And before you think I've just insulted everyone, I haven't, because I come from that ilk. I am that guy. I'm
millions a year, right?
What's that?
You talk to thousands of people a year, pretty much.
And when I meet them, I'm like, wow, I'm meeting a bunch of people who I would have been friends with in high school, right? Because I was a French horn player in band who, I was watching the Transformers movie in the theater and then slowing it down frame by frame to see if every Transformer transformed right. I was that kind of nerd. Now, I know there was hardcore anime nerds, in the 80s who are, were anime cool with anime before anime was cool, but their spirit and my spirit and the hardcore anime spirit, in terms of the kind of, and I use that term loosely, nerd that really is a hardcore fan, I feel like me and Michael Sinter-Nicholas and Stephanie Shea and a few of us hardcore old school nerds are really of that spirit, even though I don't live and breathe anime all the time, largely because I'm working on it all the time. You know what I mean? And I've got my own nerdy interests that I think are the same spirit, that same kind of spirit. But again, I found that anime fans are usually very intelligent, and used to be the outcast, and now they're cool and it's mainstream. And I'm like, yeah. And that's the thing about the movie I wanted to say. I'm like, This movie is for Dragon Ball fans who were Dragon Ball before Dragon Ball was cool, if you know what I mean. Like that old saying goes, I was country before country was cool. This movie is for those fans that were Dragon Ball before Dragon Ball was cool. And the rest of it is for everybody else who got on the bandwagon late. You're going to love it even more.
Right.
But the hardcore fans those are the fans that I'm most excited about seeing the film.
Well,
so go ahead, sir.
Well, I was going to actually follow up with that, but I want to ask you, all right, the first question here, 15 minutes in, the first question I have for you, because I actually want to follow up what you just said, but I have to ask you the most important question maybe you've ever been asked.
Okay.
Tell me a story about someone farting in the booth.
Oh, yeah, that's an old joke. That's an old joke about when I used to work at Funimation. I don't record at Funimation anymore. I record at Okatron, but I used to go, and they have these small whisper rooms, which are, in my opinion, acoustically terrible to record in. But some of them are good, but those ones are not. They don't sound good to me. Anyway, and I knew Laura Bailey was coming in, and I had to fart, and so I thought it'd be funny, because she's kind of like a little sister to me, to leave her a fart in the booth. And has
anybody ever got you?
Not that I could. I've walked in a booth a couple times. It's pretty rank, and I just assumed that it was just someone's rankness. I think the thing that grosses me out the most is, and this has happened to me a few times, and some people can't help it, so I don't want to make anybody feel bad. But what grosses me out more than smells in the booth, I expect the booth to be real smelly, but. And it's not always, but when someone's real sweaty and I pick up a set of cans and it's cold sweat all over the cans, and I put a bunch of cold sweat right on either side of my face, that grosses me out. That's pretty weird. And nobody wipes up the can. Some fancy studios will have headphone wipes or they'll have headphone sanitary little things you put on the cups of the headphones so that you don't get any goop on, which I'm like, really? You guys are doing you're doing little things on the cups of the headphones. It's stupid. What cracks me about the germaphobe people, I'm like, hey, guess what, germaphobes? You can't stop the germs. They're everywhere. And actually not letting them coexist on your body kind of screws you up a little bit.
It could mess with your immune system.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm like, but overwashing is also, underwashing is also bad. Overwashing's bad. Underwashing's bad. I digress again, but I've left a fart in a booth for Laura Bailey. I feel bad about it. As an older man, I'm like, oh wow, that's pretty juvenile, but I still think it's funny.
It's hilarious.
I hope she wasn't too offended. I meant it in good brotherly fun. But hopefully she won't. She doesn't hate me because of it. Anyway.
So all right, you're rocking out right now.
I'm playing some funky bass licks while we're talking.
It's Christmas Eve, so. Always once a musician, always a musician.
Yeah, pretty much.
So you came in 1999, you auditioned for many characters, and got hired as Goku, the main character. How much did you know about Dragon Ball before getting hired? Like, did they give you a bunch of like Japanese tapes or like Ocean dub tapes and say, all right, watch this and learn it? What kind of materials did you even get that first when you got hired?
Well, what should have happened
right,
is a lot of what you just said. What actually happened, and if there was any Ocean dub tapes watching, it was at my request from Barry Watson, who said, make sure you bring these back. Like, I had to ask to do research. There was no, Goku training school for me other than me being an actor going, an actor prepares and I need to prepare. So what had happened was I saw the open casting call and they were showing Dragon Ball on Cartoon Network already. And it was the arc where Gohan and Piccolo are in the woods doing their thing. That's a funny way to put it. And
right.
Yeah. Getting abused. So they're in the woods doing, the whole green alien watches a small boy nearly die to death. Another version of Into the Wild, I suppose. Anyway, so I was watching that and I was teaching music and coming home after teaching and trying to prepare. And I was like, there's only 2 voices on this show. I'm not going to get any part on this. I didn't realize there were dozens and dozens of voices on the show. So when I went into audition, they gave us background on the characters and they gave us about 12 different characters to audition for and asked us to just sit in the room and mimic the voice and read the script and study the character description. But I don't even think there was a character description as much as there was a script, because I didn't know that Goku was the lead or the hero of the show. I thought Yamcha might be, or and I thought Yamcha was a really cool looking character, and I'm like, oh, I want to be Yamcha. And I thought Captain Ginyu would be one of the voices I got because I thought I nailed that audition, or Jace or Berter. In fact, I thought Goku was my weakest audition. And during that audition, I didn't audition for King Kai. I think someone else actually had gotten that part, maybe, or King Kai. King Kai. No, that's not true. I thought, because there was a couple like that, like Zarbon and a couple other people had gotten them and not taken the part, so somebody else took it, or they moved away. Original Dende moved away. I think original Zarbon moved away, like shortly after they got the part, so they just recast, I think. Yeah. Something like that. But yeah, I didn't know, and so I just, I tried. Once I got the part, I asked Barry. I said, "Can I please have the original stuff I'm copying, so I can get, I want to make sure." My goal was to try to trick everybody into thinking the voice hadn't changed.
Right.
Oddly enough, I fooled one of my best friends. I was at a party, and it was one of my oldest friends, and he was a Dragon Ball fan. I didn't know, and I hadn't seen him in a while, and I saw him, and he goes, I didn't mention I was Goku, and I just talked about the show and auditioning for it or whatever, and he goes, yeah, they changed all the voices but Goku. And I'm like, really? And I go, that's funny because I'm Goku. And he goes, really? And I go, yeah. And so I guess I fooled him. But when I listened back to the impersonation, I don't know that it's that accurate or close to Ian or Peter. I think I was mostly trying to mimic Peter, but I did listen to a lot of it for a lot of weeks with the edict that I better bring those tapes back. So I diligently studied as hard as I could, and I was constantly asking questions. I was trying to treat the role. I always looked at the role as like, it's an original prelay role. I didn't look at it like I was some dub scourge like the industry looked at, which is bullshit. And there are lots of great dub actors out there, and there have been. And for anybody who's curious about, dub acting in that industry and how dub actors should be respected, watch Being George Clooney, which is all about guys who voice George Clooney and how Italy has like really respected dub actors, and they have a lot more respect than they do in the U.S. largely because of Mussolini. It's an interesting history. So I'm not going to do any spoilers, but I recommend people watch that. Anyway, so I don't know if I answered your question or not, but that's
I want to talk about Ian and Peter in a moment, and we have a section,
yeah, sure.
We've got a section coming up called "Killing the Rumor Mill," but I want to ask you about your dedication to Goku. So you got hired as Goku, did Z, GT, Adult Goku, and Dragon Ball. Went back into seasons 1 and 2, and during that time, or at least between that and Kai, because you told me a lot of stuff, a while back, that you. Not only do you insist on having Japanese scripts in the booth, but you also you've read the manga and try to get different translations, because there's obviously Viz and Funimation, Steve Simmons, they'll have their own translations.
Right.
And you also read Journey to the West. There's a lot of, so you put a lot of your time and effort into learning as much as you can about Goku and Toriyama.
Oh yeah, I did a lot of that later than I should because I didn't have resources. I didn't really get around to focusing on that.
Wasn't the original dub really rushed too, from what I understand? Like they got y'all in and out.
It was rushed largely because the tech we were using was so slow. So we had really antiquated recording systems that required us to chase tape, and not audio tape, but videotape. So that means that regardless of how fast you can record digitally, you still had to wait for a giant $25,000 machine to rewind for every cue. And until the advent of QuickTime movies, which actually Michael Cedric Nichols was the first studio to start using QuickTime movies to make things faster. And before that, one take could take a long time, and you'd get cold in the booth, meaning, your chops get cold. It's a slow process, which is why the dubbing rates were originally so low, which, one of the reasons. Plus it's an antiquated contract that goes back to the 70s, but I digress. So I went to a lot of trouble, especially on Kai, and I insist. And to my credit, I was talking to Justin Cook about this the other day. Justin's the kind of producer that every producer should be, but nobody is, because, he has the power to say, Sean, you have to read what's on the script, and you can't change nothing, and, blah, 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 or you're fired. He can do that. But instead, he respects me and loves me and knows I care about this character and knows I'm going to try to bring as much trueness to the character as possible. And he believes that also serves the character and also serves the show and translates to a better show, which translates to better sales, which translates for, good for everybody involved, money and otherwise. So it's all good. I think it's always good to honor the original artist's work, especially when it's so popular everywhere else. So it's like, why are we screwing up? It ain't broke, don't fix it, So I do insist on that, and I didn't have really the clout to do that early on, because I had a very hard-nosed producer who's basically just read what's on the page and shut up, which a lot of producers like to be that way, and those producers would be wrong. because I would argue that I could almost maybe empirically challenge anyone to say that if you support an actor and his talent and support him trying to serve the character in the way an actor should, the way we're trained to do it, you're going to get a better performance. You're going to get a better product. And so, you know, it may not make you money on the front end, but over the replay value of the back end over many, many years, you're going to have it. Something's rewatchable over and over because it was done so good the first time. And a big part of that is honoring the meaning and translation, the spirit of the original story on top of good acting. You've got a product and a story that's gonna be watched every year perennially versus some schlock that gets cranked out, made a quick buck, and then, you know, you go back to watch it 5 years later and like, what is this crap that I used to like? You know, that's why I've always tried to make something that, like, you know, A, you can't replace me, it's so good. Right. B, it stands the test of time, it's so good. C, you know, like, I wanted it to be a permanent mark, just as permanent as Goku is. For the sake of the character, my own work as an artist, my own, you know, there's certainly a certain amount of personal pride in there. Sure. All of it's all positives to me. So, you know, by the time you
love Goku. I mean, you've told me in the past that you wish that Toriyama could hear your Goku and give you the thumbs up. You've said I'd love that. You know, I'd love that. And the main thing I care about is making sure he's happy because I believe in the power of his work. If I thought the story was stupid or the character was stupid or was just so bizarrely Japanese that no American or no human could understand it, and I say bizarrely Japanese because we know some of that anime gets really out there even for the most creative people, which, you know, to Japan's credit, there's no lacking in creativity in the area of animation in Japan, as far as I'm concerned. There's a lot of really creative stuff comes every year. They are masters of that, and I am employed because of it. So it's a win-win for me. But I artistically believe that. So, you know, if I thought it was stupid, or if I thought it was not worth it, or if I thought that it didn't have a deep human element that transcended race, language, you know, religion, whatever, that was a transcendent story and a transcendent character, I probably wouldn't have cared this much or fought this hard for it. And it was only once I got to see Kai and I finally started reading the manga. I could not get a hold of the manga for some reason when I was working at Funimation in the early days. Internet was not the superstore it is today, so it was harder for me to get stuff. And I was also, you know, dealing with my own life and my own situation and trying to do the best I can. Plus, I didn't know how much it would help the show because even if I had a bunch of great ideas from reading the manga, Barry Watson wasn't going to let me stick anything in there. So, you know, there's that. But once we got to Kai, I was like, look, if I'm going to do this Goku thing, we've already done an American version. Can we please? And I think it wasn't, I'm not going to take credit for it. I don't know that it was my idea, but I don't know if you are the one who asked Justin Cook to add Son Goku to the Frieza speech. That was your call.
Oh yeah, totally my call. And Justin, being the really great producer that he is and supportive of an artist. I mean, he's not going to support me on stuff that he doesn't think is going to be good for the show. And Justin is a true artist in his own sense. He's a trained musician. He's voice of Yusuke on Yu Yu Hakusho. He directed that series. And then he's risen the ranks to become the head of production for Funimation, and he does a great job. And I wouldn't be on the show without him because he's
very loved.
Well, he's the kind of producer that I think every actor should have, which is where I'm sitting. I remember I was we have a friend's house and we were working on a song he'd written with his son, and I was giving a lot of really strong opinions on how I thought it should go musically, and I felt like I might have been overstepping my bounds. And he gave me a really good bit of advice. I thought it was a really cool thing he said to me. I thought I was overstepping my bounds because it was a song he had written with his son, you know. And I'm talking to him, and I said, "Oh man, I'm sorry, I'm probably saying too much, but this is what I think you should do with this song." And he goes, "It's okay, man. You're fighting for the song." And that was a concept I'd never really thought about before. He knew that regardless of the fact that this was a special song he'd written with his son, which, by the way, it's actually a really good song. And I don't know if he's going to release it or not. He's a composer, musician. He works with, he's actually a really amazing individual. He works for George Lucas at ILM and works for Dana Carvey and is extremely smart. No, not Justin. I'm talking about a friend of mine.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Just for people listening, the story I'm telling now about the song is about my friend Paul, not Justin Cook.
Okay.
But Justin Cook is an amazing producer, and he's a musician as well. But I didn't want to confuse everybody. Yeah. So he said, you know, you're fighting for the song. And that made me realize, you know, and I explained that to Justin one day. I'm like, yeah, I got this new concept from a friend of mine. I had never thought about this. And that's what I'm always fighting for. I'm always fighting for the song. The song is the story of Dragon Ball and Akira Toriyama's story and the purity of Goku. And I can't go back and change how I've constructed the voice, which we'll get into a second, because that was based on largely on me having to mimic the Canadian voice actor who did it before me. And that was a split between Ian Corlett and Peter Klamas. And so, but everything I bring to it now and the emotional inflections I do, yeah, that's all my own. But originally, like the diction and the pitch in the voice, those guys I think are natural tenors. I'm a natural baritone. And so I have to raise my voice a bit to do that. I do think it's odd because I never listened to Masako that much. Until recently, because we couldn't get her, and I didn't want to be influenced by. Once I had the voice down, I wanted to do it all myself. I didn't want to be influenced by. I didn't want to be a parrot. I wanted to be an actor and learn about the character and play Goku the way I'd play him, based on the knowledge I would get from Japan and Akira Toriyama and what my director's telling me, et cetera, and all the knowledge I could get. So, you know, when I'm doing when I created the voice, when I created the voice, but when I do the voice, you know, I'll never know how I would have done it otherwise. But
yeah, you're basically saying that you get more influence from Peter and Ian than you do in Nozawa, but because of all the research you've done, like reading the manga, studying
that's influenced my. That's influenced my
your understanding of the character.
My character and my portrayal of the character, which and I just want to make them happy. But point was is that when I'm fighting for the song, I've always been fighting for credit where credit's due, you know, respect for the dub actors, and also for, most importantly, and the reason I fight for Akira Toriyama's vision. I mean, it's not because I love Akira Toriyama so much. I do, but it doesn't come from love. It's out of respect.
Yeah.
Whether or not I like the. Well, yeah, whether or not I like the story. Luckily, I happen to like the story and I happen to like the character quite a bit. But, you know, this is a guy who is a genius, who has found a way to make a manga. So you have a guy who, you know, who I thought was a struggling manga artist, but you just informed me on the break that that he was a millionaire from Dr. Slump, which I did not know that. But even with Dr. Slump, I mean, regardless whether it started with Dr. Slump or Dragon Ball, you got a guy like any artist who, unless he was born into money, which he might have been, who's a struggling artist who's just trying to find his voice, and then he finds a story that resonates with a lot of people, and you know,
you want to respect that.
Yeah. Well, I want to respect that because my logic was this: I'm like, look, if Japan likes this so much, you know, despite any leftover weird, I don't know, things, you know, people might think in America in the 90s about Japanese culture or understanding it or that it's too weird for America or whatever. I think the important thing to note here is that like Americans and like everybody on earth, Japanese people are human with human emotions. So if they've got a story that resonates with that many people in Japan, why would it not resonate with you know, people in other countries, unless it was just like a strictly Japanese history, you know, story. Like I directed a show called Samurai Deeper Kyo, which had two Japanese storylines. One was a fake historical storyline, a timeline split, and the other one was a real one. And so that, you know, was a great show. But what made it interesting to Americans, to me, was the fake timeline. But then I also found the original timeline interesting because I got a course in Japanese history. Well, although I doubt it's super accurate. And I'm sure someone will say, it's not that accurate. And I'm like, that's fine. I get it. Point is that when you take Akira Toriyama's story and the fact that it's based on the Great Journey West, which, like ancient Greek tales, there's a reason. I don't know if anybody's ever read Joseph Campbell. If you follow Crispin Freeman, he's a Joseph Campbell lecturer and master of the Hero and the Myth series, a voice actor. A friend of mine, and he a well-known voice actor, and he's all about that. And I got turned on to Joseph Campbell long ago, but I never studied as hardcore as he did. But when I finally did, you know, the reason these stories resonate for us, the hero and the myth, it is the story of being a human, and it is a story of what it's like to struggle. And so to clothe that the Great Journey West or any story like that in modern clothes and tell it in the way that Akira Toriyama has, with his unique character designs that are very accessible and very clearly defined and very quirky and interesting. You know, even that last quote you sent me from the thing the other night, you're like, well, for sure. He even says, well, for sure about fighting, you know, it's almost sexist what he said, although I don't think he means to be sexist.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
I mean, I can see a lot of people cringing at that comment, but he's an older gentleman, and I get that he might say that. I think he was trying to say, well, I thought this show was going to be for boys. I know the boys will like it, but for those of you girls who like it, yeah, that's cool too. I think that's what he was saying. I mean, is that what it's?
Like it,
and look, and I'll be straight up with the ladies. You know, back when I first started, you know, my demographic of autographs I'd sign or people I'd meet was, you know, 8 to 18-year-old boys, and now I've met a 90-something-year-old couple with no kids who watch Dragon Ball. I would say about 30%. The number's gone up to about 30% female fans. Which I think is freaking awesome. I just wish that, you know, there'd be more female Saiyans in it. We do have some here in the new movie.
Right.
And we have Kaba in the new arc in the new movie. Oh, yeah, in the new arc in the new movie. And that's going to be really cool.
You mean Khalifa and Kale?
Yeah, Khalifa. Sorry, not Kaba. I mean Khalifa and Kale, yeah. I do still find it very humorous that, you know, if we were Japanese, we would be watching a show about vegetables fighting each other. Like, it really cracks me up. Because because that's how the Japanese are seeing it. That's what cracks me up. It's like we do the Broly movie and you know, it's like Kakarot. It's like carrot, broccoli, vegetables. Like it's really, and so I wonder what level of humor they get from it. You know, because to me it's just names. I don't always translate it. You know, Kakarot, it sounds like a cool alien name, and then I have to go, oh yeah, that means carrot. You know, and for the average, yeah, it's a pun. Yeah. And so he does a lot of puns in there that are translated. And because, you know, I think that one idea for Goku's name when they were going to do it on Funimation is they were trying to do that pun thing in English, which actually I think might have been a good idea, but people would, I think hardcore fans would have hated it. But in spirit, I think it's a good idea, which was they wanted to call Goku something like Brock Lee. So it was like Bruce Lee, but it was Brock Lee.
The problem is we had Broly come in later. And
well, exactly.
Right? Yeah.
Well, yeah, there was that problem. So are you going to go with like Goku and Carrot Head or Carrot Top or just Carrot? Or if it's a pun, how do you pun on carrot or vegetable? So to me, when you first hear the names, especially when I'm explaining it to people, they just sound like cool, wild Japanese names, you know, most people who don't know. And then when you explain what it's about, they laugh and think it's funny. But when you're watching the show, you just kind of forget all about that. Like when there's a scene between Goku and Gohan, I'm not going, hey, rice dish. You know, like, isn't Gohan a type of rice dish? Or isn't it? Yeah. I'm not thinking that. So I think that's another angle that is another layer that is maybe lost to the English audience in terms of its emotional impact that was meant specifically as a joke that, you know, Kira Toriyama was doing for home. So, but
so
yeah,
basically,
go ahead. Sorry, keep me on track.
No, it's all good. When you came back to do Kai, it was almost like you were like, okay, here's my second chance to do this series over again. It's the Z portion of it. Now I can really become Goku, and I feel like ever since then, with Battle of Gods, Resurrection F, and Broly and Super, you know, you've kind of taken the ball and ran with it, I guess, for lack of a better term. I'm taking the ball and run with it in the negative sense of the word. But basically, what I was trying to do is like, and also when we did Kai, Justin was now my producer. So you have a shift in the power structure where you have a producer who's open to this idea, and you have a shift in the culture regarding anime being more proliferated. So a hardcore, strict, dub that sticks strictly with the Japanese as much as possible is going to sell to a wider audience because the audience is primed for it now because anime has been more in the ether longer in the public eye. Yeah.
And that's a big part of it. I mean, you couldn't get Goku in a Macy's Day Parade float in 1999, but you can now. Right. So that's a pretty big deal. So I'm thrilled to be a part of that. That it was my character. So
do you have any techniques that allow you to scream so loud and so long? Like, for example, the scene that you did in with Hit and with Beerus, it was just screaming. Like, what is it? Just a natural talent, or do you like drink tea or something? Is there a trick?
I don't. Well, most voice people aren't going to agree with me when they hear this, but I cringe when this comes from I'm a hardcore French hornist, and when you're a French horn player in an orchestra, you're the Green Berets, you're the Navy SEALs, you're the Marines of the orchestra, and anybody who says otherwise in the orchestra would be lying because. And I'm not just saying it because I'm a prideful hornist. I believe the horn used to be in the Guinness Book of the World Records as the most difficult instrument on earth to play. My point is that there's a certain amount of hardcoreness that comes with that kind of discipline and that kind of instrument that I try to bring to the character. So with that, when you're that hardcore, you know that you can't be hardcore and have any insecurity around, oh, wait, like for using French horn as an example, I know a lot of guys use lip stuff, or they use little tricks here. They use beta blockers for their brain when they don't get nervous. And I don't believe in any of that shit, because that can backfire on you at the worst possible time. If you can't get your beta blocker, if you forget your Carmex, if you got to be able to play naked, so to speak. And what that means is that, like, what if you forget your valve oil? Like one time you have to be a good enough player to where I had my trigger on my French horn, which switched back and forth between the F and the B flat side, completely fell off before a concert, like literally before the conductor was going to do the downbeat. And what that means is on the horn is you can't switch back and forth between the F and the B flat side. So that's going to make playing high notes in the upper register a little more difficult, which, I was capable of doing, but I was also principal horn on the gig. And so I realized that could be a problem, and the thumb valve just fell off, and I didn't have a backup French horn. So I turned to Brian, my buddy, and I go, hey, how about you play principal and I'll play second, and we'll swap places, because the second horn part's always going to be lower and you don't have to use the trigger as much. So I just locked my horn in the F side and then played the concert that way. But I had to be ready for that. If I had not been ready to make an adjustment like that, or not even ready to play on just that one side of the horn, by not training myself on both sides or using some kind of weird gimmick, I mean, it's not the best metaphor, but it works, I would have been screwed. So when people are like, oh, I go to my session and make sure I get my T, well, that's just a psychological security thing as far as I'm concerned. So proper vocal technique and proper breath support and water are the only things you need. Now, if I have a really, really rough session, post a session, I will use Chinese herbs or throat coat tea. And sometimes in a really rough session, I will use throat coat tea in the middle of the session, because it has a couple of herbs in it that actually coat your throat in a way that kind of numbs the nerves and protects the throat from damage a little bit. But once you start feeling any kind of weird pain or sharp pain, a lot of actors might not want to tell the producer or the director, sorry, I can't go anymore, because they don't want to lose the job. Yeah, I always do it. I'm like, sorry, I'm done. And I just go home. You got to protect that voice. So the main thing is proper technique, which includes proper vocal technique, which I learned from being a choir director and also being a vocal minor in college. And also, just I'm a pretty loud person, I guess, in general. I don't know if that makes any difference, but also breathing technique. Blowing on a French horn and playing a horn or a trumpet or a flute or whatever is very, very similar to any kind of breathing techniques you would learn from a choir or choir director. And it's all about diaphragmatic breath support, which helps the neck muscles and in particular the lungs and the diaphragm does the bulk of the work, and then the vocal cords are just suspended there, vibrating freely, versus crammed together or stretched together or pulled or contorted in a way that would cause damage once they start vibrating. And being sent, and another thing that helps is proper headphone monitoring. And you want to make sure you're loud enough in your cans. People say I monitor too hot, but I do that because I want to hear every tiny little thing back in my throat, so that I can make subtle adjustments and also protect my voice. I mean, Sabbath has even told me that he's blown his voice out when he couldn't get proper monitoring, because you're talking too loud, because you can't hear yourself, and then you blow out your voice faster. So I'd rather have the cans too hot than too cold. I guess they don't call it cold.
When he says cans, he means headphones. I wanted
to headphones,
just for people.
I know that's such a cheesy term. It cracks me up. Yeah, put the cans on, man. So yeah, I don't have a vocal rest. Knowing your body, paying attention to your body, breath support, knowing your limits, and proper technique.
And breaking your limits, like Goku does.
When I break my limits, dude, I remember looking at the Broly movie and I was thinking to myself, if I had to do the Broly part, that would be a challenge for me. Don't let it be said that had I had to play Broly, it would have been a challenge, and I would have brought it. That's for sure.
No, I'm sure you would have. Now, all right, so I have a series on my channel called Dragon Ball Mythbusters, and what I do is I kill the BS. I basically make these videos that destroy myths and misconceptions. So I want to do a little section of the interview here called Killing the Rumor Mill, because there's a lot of BS going around we're going to kill right now, first and foremost.
Well, it's funny. Well, real quick, for the record, I love Mythbusters, and it single-handedly ruined a lot of Hollywood films for me, because once they explain all the shooting and the bullets and however that works, I'm like going, well, first thing I know, I better hide behind a wheel well or an engine if I'm going to hide from bullets. And secondly, all those guys should have died hiding behind doors and movies. You know what I mean?
It would have gone right through.
Yeah, it would have gone right through. I thought that was pretty funny. Anyway, go ahead. So we're going to do the myth busting?
Let's kill the rumor mill right now. First and foremost, all right? All right. Peter and Ian, all right? Let's talk about that first.
Sure.
I don't know where this myth started about how you have some kind of personal problem with other Gokus, whether it be that you're insecure or you don't want anybody else to be Goku. What is the truth? Because as far as I know, you have no issue with them, but what's the story?
Oh, well, I mean, there's two things here. People are confusing my commitment to the character with ownership of the character. I don't own Goku, but I'm fucking Goku, if that makes sense.
Right.
In other words, I'm committed to the character, and as long as I'm employed by Funimation and Toei, I am the official voice of Goku for English-speaking countries, in particular the United States.
And you've done the most Goku of anybody who speaks English in the world. So.
Yeah, but as far as Ian and Peter are concerned, and I don't know how that rumor got started, but people don't realize that I have been extraordinarily crediting of them since I started on the show. In fact, for those of you who think that I wouldn't be cool with other Gokus or don't like other Gokus, I don't like the fact that what I originally perceived, and maybe I was wrong about this, but I originally perceived that it seemed to me that I had done all this work along with my castmates for 20 years. The show gets really popular. And then, guys that used to play Goku 20 years ago are like jumping on the bandwagon and going to cons. And to me, it originally looked like a money grab based on the popularity we had created along with the show. And I talked with Peter about that. And Peter and I are totally cool. And it's definitely not like that. So I may have been wrong about that. But that's how it looked to me initially. And I was a little upset about it because what upset me was when I first got on the show, as a classical musician and as a guy who believes in credit where credit's due, even when I went to Australia, when I would do cons and I'd be signing in various conventions as early as 1999, 2000, 2001, if anybody ever brought me a Pioneer DVD, I would say, hey, I don't think I'm your childhood, or that wasn't really a phrase then. I don't even think I use that phrase because now people say you're my childhood because the show's been on long enough for it to be somebody's childhood. So I don't even know that I said that. But what I would say is, I don't think I'm the guy that you think I am. I just started doing the part. This thing has either Peter or Ian in it. Are you sure you still want me to sign it? I'll sign it if you want me to. I just want to make you aware that what you've been listening to, I just started and it's not me. And I did that a lot. And I did it. Actually, I did it. In fact, I did it last year. I remember a guy brought me a Pioneer DVD box set. And I'm like, I don't think I'm in this. I think it's Ian Corley. I mentioned Ian and Peter's names many times in the release. And if you met me back then, that's the case. And I have to give them credit to some degree because how I created the voice is partly how, I was trying to mimic that voice. Now it has slowly become my own thing, but there are still remnants and the emotions I feel and how I channel that into pitches is me. But the diction and where it's set in the voice and, especially in the early days where I'm really trying to get up in their more tenor range. And I would say that Goku Super Saiyan Blue is closest to my, or some of the lower pitched voices I do for Goku are closest to my natural speaking voice. Sure, SS4. I mean, you can hear my natural speaking voice now. You know what it sounds like. But there's definitely a shift I do, and there's definitely a spirit I channel, and I use that term loosely because I'm of two minds about anything spiritual. But as far as those guys are concerned, I think it's ridiculous that anybody would ever think that or say that. They may have got the idea that sometimes I won't appear at different shows with different Gokus for a number of reasons. One is I don't want it to be where I got a giant lion, they don't. On the other hand, I don't want it where there's some guys who played the role previously, Ian and Peter aren't those guys for sure, who they've never aired their version of the show in my country, and then they're coming to my country and signing on my stuff. And so I'm like, wait a second, if you're going to have me appear and I'm the official voice of Goku for this convention, and for the show, and we have a show on the air right now, it's not really fair to me for you to, misrepresent and say, hey, we got the voice of Goku at wherever it was, LA Comic Con or whatever, and it's not the voice of Goku that the kids have heard. In other words, what I'm worried about, look, those guys have a right and claim to it, especially if Toei hired them. My point is that, though, as long as they're doing what I did, I don't have a problem with it, but I don't think they were. I don't think that when somebody, I don't know about Ian and Peter because I haven't talked to Ian personally, but I've talked to Peter. We've had drinks. He's a great guy and very funny and talented guy as well. Really had a great time with him and Brian in Vancouver when I was there recently. But as far as some of the other guys are concerned, I thought it was, really uncool to have on your bio, you know, is best known as the voice of Goku, when they didn't even show their version in my country, and they haven't done all the episodes, and they haven't done all the work. And so what I'm worried about is a kid walks up to him, and you got like, I don't know, maybe you got an 8-year-old kid. And if they're older, maybe they know better or whatever. But what I'm worried about is that they go, hey, I'm so excited. I've been listening to you for like 10 years or 15 years or 20 years or whatever. I'm so excited to meet you. And please sign my stuff. And they're having the experience of thinking they've met the guy they've been listening to. And then that guy doesn't tell them. That's really not cool. Like, that's so disingenuous, to not only disrespectful to me as an actor, it's disrespectful to the kid who's giving you money for your autograph. So then it looks like a money grab to me if someone were to do that. But right. You know, and that's not something I do or have ever done. And so
and didn't you yourself say that if it were up to you, obviously you love Goku and the fans, and Goku's made you, you know, happy in your life, successful. But yeah, you said though that if it were up to you, it would have been Ian Corlett from start to finish, because you don't like cast changes. I don't like cast changes at all, because you're not redrawing the character different, even though one could argue that Goku's drawing style has evolved over the years. But I don't think that was necessarily. I don't know that it was intentional. I don't know if it was just different animators. You probably know more about that than I do. But I'm like, okay, well, you're not changing anything else about him, so why would you change the voice? Are you going to rip his throat out and stick somebody else's voice in there? And it's always just some stupid producer that wants to, you know, save money or do something. And Ian can tell you why he quit originally. And I think he had a good reason, if the rumor's true, which is that Funimation at the time, Barry didn't want to pay for Screams. And so Ian, and you got to check this out with Ian, but you know, and I'm sure he'd be happy to elucidate anybody on this situation. Right. And I think Peter told me this, that basically we said, hey, look, we got to get paid for Screams or I'm not doing this. And they're like, fine, we'll get somebody else. And then Peter does it. After Peter doing it for a while, I think the whole cast got together and was like, hey, you got to pay us for Screams or something. And then Funimation was like, well, we can do this cheaper, better in Texas, so we're just going to do that. If I had my way, because I wouldn't know better. It's kind of like, you know, would you, you know, wish your mom wouldn't have had you? You know, timeline.
It's an alternate timeline. Yeah. So, you know, I'm not, you know, the me who's playing Goku is like, well, of course I want to be Goku. But just in terms of respecting if I said, well, what would be the most perfect Dragon Ball universe? You know, in terms of the English-speaking version, one freaking cast the whole time, and if that's those guys, great.
But what's funny is, here's what's funny though is, if let's say another timeline, you were the first Goku from start to finish, would your voice have sounded like Ian and Peter's, or would you have brought a different kind of voice to Goku?
Well,
see, that's the interesting conundrum.
Well, it's an interesting question, because I can look. I've been playing the character long enough, and I've been auditioning enough to know how I break down a character and to know how I would approach the character. And I can say a lot. I can tell you this: a lot of what I get for Goku's emotion. It's different than with Masako, I think, because I'm dubbing, right? So a lot of the screams and a lot of the emotion. There goes my other timer, but we're going to keep going because this is good. But a lot of the screams and a lot of the emotion comes from the emotional content I get from the animation and the drawing. And we have bumped into this conundrum where there'll be a line written, and even Raleigh, our director on Super and lead engineer, will go, wait a second, this line does not match his face. Why would he? And if we can't find a good reason to rationalize the line working with the emotion on the face, we try to make something work that, because the idea is you want that all to sync up in your head. You want to be, you know, if Goku's saying something with this facial expression and this, like I saw an old recording of me, Super Saiyan 2 or 3, where Goku is doing some kind of snarky speech while he's really powered up. And I'm looking at it now going, my face does not match exactly that. I would change that today, right? Because it doesn't match up, because I'm still learning and growing as an actor. Between Kai and all the movies I've done and Super, I feel like I've really got that down really well. I'm really confident that I'm doing a good job on matching my tonality with the face, and that tonality also matches with the script and the meaning, and that tonality also matches with the Japanese meaning. I'm trying to line all those things up to make sure that and that's all the whole purpose of that is to suspend your disbelief, to make sure that you believe Goku's a real thing, so you can escape from whatever you're suffering, so you can have a little bit easier journey on Earth while you're here. So that's the whole enchilada on how I think about all this and what I'm doing. And so when it comes to, wait, where was the core of this question? I want to get back to the point.
Well, it was mostly about Ian and Peter, but it brings me to another question, though, or another statement, is that there have been times where you have sounded like Nozawa,
wait. Hold that thought. But the thing is, back to the thing of Ian and Peter, my whole thing is like, you know, if I was just like, I don't know, if I was Whis in the world universe and I just had, you know, mastery over time and space, and I saw this going down, I'd be just like, look, you know, stick with one cast unless somebody dies, of course. And I've had to voice match for a colleague who died, and it's not a fun thing to do. And it was, you do a lot of crying in the booth, and it's very difficult to hear somebody in your voice and you know they just died, and you're trying to copy it just so you can get a show done. It happened to me on a 4Kids show I worked on. Anyway, so I don't want to go into it, but it wasn't fun. But I was honored and happy that they picked me to you know, carry that spirit on, so to speak. So, but as far as those guys are concerned, like, look, I've always given those guys credit, and I've always, if I don't appear or whatever, part of it's also like, you know, making sure that nobody feels bad. You know what I mean? Like, if I would feel terrible if I did, and it didn't happen at Kamehameha, for example, but I'd feel terrible if, you know, Peter or Ian or somebody came out and didn't get the love they deserved, and I got this giant line, they don't have a line, or if people, they're signing my stuff and I'm signing on their stuff, and I'm like, well, that's not cool either. My whole weird thing is credit where credit's due. And so if you're going to come to my country and sign on my DVDs, just do me a favor and, you know, tell them who you are. Cause that's what I do when I sign on your DVDs, and I have since 1999. So for those of you who think that, you would be wrong. And I bet if I dug real hard, I could probably find some fan who I met in the early 2000s who remembers me saying that and saying, maybe I shouldn't sign your Pioneer stuff since that's not me in it. That's so important. I mean, think about that actor guy who's doing that. You're deceiving a child and taking their money and acting like you're the magic voice to them. I'm not saying my voice is magic, but I see the reaction I get when I do the voice, and it's a wonderful feeling. You're that magic voice. To me, it's no different than, like, you know, the reason I cried in the booth when I did an episode of Scooby-Doo with Frank Welker is because Frank Welker's my freaking childhood.
That's a legend,
so,
dude.
You know, that's a legend. So when he busts out of Scooby-Doo and I'm in the booth with him and about 10 other actors, yeah, I couldn't finish my lines. Now, if that had been a copy of Scooby-Doo and he was like, hey, I'm Joe Blow, the voice of Scooby-Doo, I'd be like, no, you're not, dude. You know,
right?
Not my Scooby-Doo.
And you're not saying that Ian and Peter do that. You're not saying that Ian and Peter.
Oh no, I'm not saying they do that.
You don't want other actors to do that.
Well, no, I think there are some other Gokus who have. I'm not going to mention names. I don't think Ian and Peter have done that, and I was suspicious that maybe they had, but not maybe intentionally. Like I was just afraid that nobody else thought about credit like I did. And because you know, we weren't getting paid nothing, and so I was really insistent that my name was in the credits also. And even when I directed anime dubs, I would insist that our names would be on the box and that we'd be on the credits. I didn't like this whole because we're the, and I want to get to that point on this interview too, that just because we're the dub cast, we are somehow less than the original cast. That is a load of shit. If you think the Japanese dub is better, period, just because it's Japanese, you would be objectively wrong. Here's why. That would mean that the very first cast of Shakespeare's, and this isn't the best analogy, and I'll come up with maybe another one here in a second, but that would mean that the very first cast that Shakespeare himself cast for Romeo and Juliet is the best Romeo ever to play Romeo, and the best version of that. And the reason it's not the best analogy is because Shakespeare is very difficult to translate into other languages because of the iambic pentameter, etc. So it's like, okay, so we don't know for sure that Italian Romeo, or, well, that was kind of funny, or French Romeo or Canadian Romeo is the best Romeo. They could be the best Romeo or better than the original Shakespearean Romeo. So in order for you to really make that judgment call, you'd have to grow up in Japan and America, be fluent in both Japanese and English, also have a certain acumen for listening to things and artistically critiquing them, and have some sense of talent of what is good performance or not. You can always have your subjective opinion. You could also be full of shit. I mean, there's also that. I mean, I have my own subjective opinions that I'm full of shit on, and that's fine. I don't think this is one of them. And that's why I want people to watch Being George Clooney, because it really, and I'll just say this, the metaphor in Being George Clooney is, imagine George Clooney is the character Goku, and all the guys who play George Clooney around the world, particularly the Italian guy, are guys who play George Clooney. Now, George Clooney's different than Goku because he's bringing stuff to the table. He's different than Mosco Nozawa in the sense that Mosco's providing her voice and not her full body, and George Clooney's got his whole body. So the metaphor doesn't quite perfectly work, but if you think about it that way, the point is that, of course, I respect the Japanese cast. Of course, I think they're amazing, but I also don't think that doesn't mean another cast can't perform as good or better for their respective language,
as long as you
for
got the
their
character
country.
down. As long as the character.
Well, as long as you get the character down.
Yeah, that's the way I see it. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's where we may agree or disagree, but I agree with you in this particular instance. That yeah, as long as you get the character down and the performance is there, and you know, it could be that way. So this whole notion that dubs are less than comes from dubs being treated like shit in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s in America. But in Italy, dub actors have incredible reverence and respect. In fact, one time, I think and I may misquote the movie, but there's a scene in the movie in Be George Clooney where Robert De Niro decides to do his own dub because he speaks Italian. So the guy who does Robert De Niro in Italy gets ousted because Robert De Niro wants to do his own Italian. They air the movie, and everybody in Italy is like, "Who's this guy? This guy sucks." And they go, "That's actually Robert De Niro."
That's
and they're like,
crazy.
"Fuck that!" And they go, "Fuck that guy. I want I want my voice actor." And that's the way American voice actors, anime dub voice actors, and our cast should be treated. And any dub should be treated that way compared to the original. That we are not less than because we're the dub cast. There's definitely a subjective element to this, certainly. But I've broken it down pretty hardcore. And I've always treated the show as if I just got cast on a brand new show that nobody's ever done before. Not because I didn't want to acknowledge that, but that's how I can fully commit to the character instead of thinking, okay, now I'm playing a character and guess whose hands are in my pot? Ian, Peter, Masako, some fan, Geekdom, some other fan. Like, okay, who's Goku here? If I'm going to be an actor and I'm going to be committed and I'm going to do a good job, I'm taking this shit as hardcore seriously as I did the horn. Right. And that was some shit I did for 20 or 30 years, 3 or 4 hours a day. So I'm not messing around when it comes to playing Goku. And anybody who's directly attacked me online or giving me guff without really knowing what's wrong or going on, shame on you. And if I was a dick to you publicly, I apologize because I haven't always been perfect either. And I by and large, I am 100% cool with my fans all the time.
You love your fans. I mean,
I do. And my fans piss me off all the time because they're up my ass and annoying all the time. And I love them for it because they're passionate. The ones that I have argued with are ones that either have been rude to me, and I was rude back sometimes. And that's pretty rare. I'm talking about like a handful of times in 20 years. And so that's what's weird about me even having to defend this is that like I try to be gregarious, but I'm also a human being. So like I said to him in private conversations, you show up at the airport trying to get a bunch of shit signed. Well, I just got off a plane and I know that you're trying to resell them somewhere and you're undermining everyone else who's paying hard money to go to the con and meet me and wait in line. You're being a dick, and that doesn't mean I'm going to be nice to you. However, that all being said, I probably should still, I don't believe philosophically, even though I lose my cool sometimes in being mean like that. So I don't appreciate that, but at the same time, sure, it's flattering, but I also don't deal with my ego and what I.
It's not ego, it's passion. That's the way I'm saying it.
Well, I guess when I'm saying deal with my ego, people say, well, shouldn't you be flattered? Somebody wants your autograph at the airport. I'm like, no, somebody wants to invade my space at the airport and take advantage of me is what they want to do.
Or whatever.
Yeah,
right?
or whatever time I'm getting in and I'm not ready to talk to a stranger. I'm like, geez Louise, man, come to the show. Plus, I also sign contracts with conventions that prohibit me from doing this because it undermines everybody's trying to make. Look, the whole thing is everybody's trying to make money, but they also want to provide a good experience for people who are fans and people who go to these shows so that the money they're given isn't undercut and that they're not being undercut elsewhere and that it's fair. And so I even resist private signings for this exact purpose because like getting my autograph to me is an experience that I want you to have where you met me and we had a moment. And that's the same way I feel when I get other people's autographs. I have a collection of autographs myself. I have Neil Peart's drumsticks that he actually used in a concert sitting on my shelf right in front of a Styx poster that has the entire the entire band members of Styx signed on it. You know, luckily those were gifts, but I would have paid $100 for a piece for those. So, and I would have loved to have met Neil. I didn't get to. In fact, I would rather I'd met Neil and not got the sticks, but the guy who got me the drumsticks are pretty cool. So it was I have my own things I'm fans of, right. And so I avoid private signings sometimes where I'll sign bulk for someone. The only reason I do them occasionally only because they do make the point that sometimes there are people who can't travel or people who can't make it to cons or can't even afford to get into a con and they just want the autograph. So I am doing that more, and man, that's such a cool feeling. It's such a great thing to be a part of that you could have work that you've done on a show that's so popular that someone would even want you to sign something is pretty damn cool. And I got to say, at this point, I've said this to you before, many voice actors, particularly voice actors who we don't get residuals. None of us get residuals on Dragon Ball, and none of us get residuals on. I don't get residuals on anything I've done except Sophia the First, which I did like 3 characters for a couple of years ago. And if it wasn't for us being able to do conventions and the fan love we get when they buy our autographs, I couldn't afford to go to the doctor, eat, or do anything. Funimation pays me.
And support the actors, folks.
Oh, it's wonderful, and we love it. I mean, everybody does. I know Chris has even said he can send his kids to college now because of fan love. So these and it's a problem because the producers on these shows should be paying us more, and that goes for Funimation to some degree. Although Funimation has taken very good care of me and the rest of the cast, I believe, in the last few years. But for the longest time, most of my fans made more in a year than me on Dragon Ball. Most of my fans would make more in a year than, and not combined, individually, like working at Pizza Hut. It's extremely low, and they like it that way, and it's frustrating because I can understand when it's a new dub that has any traction, but when you have a worldwide mega hit,
right.
Come on. So we are, as actors, I know the entire voice acting community is super grateful. Like we are beside ourselves at the fan support and love, and actually that's a big part of what fuels my excitement. Is I know that love's coming toward me and everybody else, and it's a win-win situation for everybody. So I just try to make that as fair as possible, and I try to be as kind as possible. But sometimes fans ask me for too much and they push the envelope too far. And that's when I have to let them know I'm a human being. And I wish other big celebrities would do that more, because what happens is big celebrities, I don't even consider myself a celebrity, but the big ones, they do this weird, like, always be nice, always look good, always, don't ever show. And then they end up creating a cult of personality or an unrealistic relationship with their fans. Then a fan comes to me and goes, well, that person let me do all this crazy inappropriate shit. Why won't you? I go, because that person's an idiot for letting you do inappropriate shit.
Right.
Or sometimes I'll say, well, I'm not as nice as that person. But, and I hope fans can understand that. I even hate using that word, but I hope they can understand that my whole goal here is to preserve my sanity and give you the most genuine and real Sean you can get. And part of that's me being, maybe snarky if you say something snarky to me, which I don't necessarily think I should do. But the whole point I'm trying to make is that I've tried really hard to be as real as possible, because early in my career, I realized I was trying to emulate the character too much as I met fans. And I felt really gross afterwards, because I felt like I was being somebody I wasn't. I was not being genuine with them, and I was putting on something that wasn't real. Now, that's not to say that, I always try to stay in good spirits more so than I would do on other days when I go to a convention. I always want to lead with a positive note. But, so it's not, like I don't get myself I have to get into a certain psychological place before I go out and meet my public, as it were. I hate even using that phrase, but I don't always start at the same time everybody does. But when I do and I'm there, I'm all on and I'm ready to go, and I'm going to stay there. And I don't like leaving my line when I got other stuff to do, because I hate the fact that people are having to wait. I'm always thinking about everybody in line, and I want them to have a good experience. And I want to be talkative and entertaining as much as I can be, because I feel that way when I meet my people. That's why I cried when I was in the booth with Frank Welker, Had it been some other guy, I would have been like, whatever, but it was Frank frickin' Welker. And the guy they had there to replace Casey Kasem, Matt, I forgot his last name. He's spectacular. I love Casey Kasem. So no, I didn't cry because he was there. I will say that he did Shaggy justice and does a great Shaggy. His name is, I forgot his last name, Matt. He's very well known, Matt. And I saw him a couple other times in a green room at a New York Comic Con or somewhere. But he plays, but I wasn't all jazzed about that because he wasn't my childhood, even though he did a really good Shaggy impersonation. But Frank, that's my Scooby-Doo right there, man. Like that blew my mind. I couldn't finish my lines sometimes. It was great. And if I'm doing that for some kid, my purpose on earth is complete, and it makes me happy. And I'm just saying that's such a sensitive, emotional thing that please don't lie to a kid and say you're somebody you're not. Yeah. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
At the end of the day, you have weight because you did more Goku than anybody.
Well, yeah, but I shouldn't have to fight for it. Look, I have tremendous respect for Ian and Peter, and I don't have any problem with them saying they're Goku or whatever. I'm just saying, if you're going to come to Texas or the United States, I didn't even want to go to Canada and sign because I didn't think they showed my version there. And I told the convention, hey, I don't think I should go there because I don't think I sign it there. And they're like, no, they show both versions, but you've been doing it longer, and so you should come here. And I'm like, okay, fine. But if you're coming to my country and you've never shown it here, now Ian and Peter's been shown here, so that's fine. And I also didn't know that they went back and did more, and I also didn't know they had re-released some of their stuff while I was still doing it. Funimation had done it. I didn't know that, and so that's that's totally legit, man. And so it's really, and part of this goes back to, just so if someone disagrees with me out there, and this is where maybe I've got a little bit of a flaw. Look, I also am very sensitive about credit where credit's due, because I didn't get a lot of credit and had a lot of things taken from me growing up. So once I got this really precious thing, I was going to commit to it and hold on to it as tight as I could. And I don't think it's fair, that I should even have to deal with this when I don't think there's 2 French Gokus, and I don't think there's 2, Mexican Gokus, and there's not 2.
There's actually 4 Spanish Gokus. It's crazy, man.
They should have 1, because okay. Look, I don't care if anybody hears this.
Dubs. It's very confusing.
Well, it's bullshit, and that's because people are trying to make money. When Japan starts releasing multiple Japanese dubs, I'll be okay with it. But all I'm saying is like, hey, people making this, and I don't know if it's Toei or the company's doing it or whatever, have some respect for the character in the show and have 1 cast, because I'm also trying to suspend your disbelief. I'm also kind of the mindset where I don't even like to do the voice in public, because back in the old days, voice actors would not even do the voice in public because they wanted to preserve the suspension of disbelief for younger kids. And I'm kind of that mindset a little bit, especially I really got a real lesson when I had a real good bonding moment with some of the people at Toei. And I really learned about how they care about the character, so much so that I understand now when Chris and I had written a script to go on stage at New York Comic Con as the voice of Goku and Vegeta, we'd written a script to introduce Broly, and they shot it down. And the reason they shot it down is we were writing for the character, and they had to approve that. And I'm with them on that. I don't think it should be just this willy-nilly where you can just do whatever you want with the voice because it's funny, fun, and cool. They take that stuff really seriously, and so do I. And maybe my castmates don't to some degree, and that's fine. I'm not mad at them or judging them. I'm just saying I really wish it was a situation where you've got, 1 actor on each part representing that show and respecting that show. I think it's disrespectful to the show, disrespectful to the fans, and ruins the show when you water it down like that. So, and my attitude is, and this is going to sound arrogant, but my attitude is, you don't deserve my level of commitment if I don't get that. I mean, why do I not get it if Masako Nozawa gets it or any other Goku gets it? I'm saying every dub actor deserves that respect. If you're the French Goku or Italian Goku or whatever language you're speaking, whatever companies are producing that for Toei, Jesus Christ, respect the audience, respect the actors, respect the character, and respect the continuity, and stick with 1 character. And if that means, Toei wants to go back in time and re-record everything with Ian Corlett, I got to be okay with that. But right now, I'm the guy. And so I'm committed, and I don't want to do this, and I don't want to be committed to it unless I'm the guy. So,
and like I said
you know
earlier,
what I mean?
Like I said earlier, you went above and beyond. You read the manga. Not every actor does that. I was actually pretty surprised when Monica told me that when she directs, she references the manga. I thought that was kind of a cool.
Monica's hardcore. I look up to her as an actor.
You said she was the greatest. You said she was the greatest actor right now. I think
she's one of the finest. I think she's one of the finest voice actors on planet Earth today, dub or otherwise, in terms of versatility, talent, and just pretty much everything she does. I don't know if she could do any kind of crazy low monster voices like I do, but I don't give a shit. She's amazing. I can't do her high squeaky stuff. I'm talking about specifically just acting and the ability to create a character.
Right.
She's a real. I mean, she's in Texas.
The craft.
Well, she's in Texas doing her thing, and I've been telling her for years. I'm like, you get your ass to LA, you're gonna just kill it out here. And I think she's thinking about doing that. I don't know what her plans are, but I know that she's gonna she'll always probably do anime and be Bulma as long as they'll have her, etc. But I know that I want to see her on a lot more American prelay shows and a lot more stuff that will earn her the residuals that she deserves and the credit and the kudos she deserves, which she gets to some degree. But I really think she's a real spectacular, real talent.
Yeah. Very hard worker. Okay, next Mythbuster.
Yeah, sorry that was a long one, but there's a lot of details, and I don't leave details unturned,
No, I never. Okay, next one, we got to kill this rumor. Do you have the power to remove cast members from the show or to, take somebody off the show and replace them? You don't even get involved in that stuff unless you're the director, which you're not, right?
No, and even the director, even Chris only has so much say. Producers always have that say. Remember, if I were a staff member at Funimation, I might have some say. I don't even know. I'm a contract freelance voice actor, which means I have a very loose relationship with Funimation in terms of what they can tell me what to do in terms of what I do outside of Funimation, although I do have morality clauses and I have other things in my contract. I can't disparage the company. Right. But as far as like being in bed with Funimation in any way that would allow me to have any kind of say as to who's on first or second, so to speak, that's just laughable to me. I'm like, I don't even understand how that rumor got started. I don't have that kind of power. I've never had that kind of power. I'm only by the grace of Justin Cook and his superiors do I have the power to make sure that Japanese scripts are in the booth and that we honor the integrity of that script. And the only reason that is because they happen to agree with me. Justin Cook and Funimation could literally walk into my booth and go, Sean, you have to read this dumb line you don't like because we say so, or you're fired. They can do that, you know. They would never do that. They like the fact. I mean, one time, in fact, early on Super, I'm like, look, dude, if you want me to just read it, that's fine. He goes, no. I asked him one day. I said, are you sure I'm nitpicking too much? He goes, no. You're making the show better. Justin's attitude is, how do we make the show?
He listens. Is what it is.
He listens. Right. When he disagrees with me, he puts his foot down. Justin is not a pushover. And hopefully I don't want to put him on the radar so much so people up his butt, email, etc. Because he's a busy guy and he likes to stay behind the scenes and that's where he is. But I can tell you, Dragon Ball Super is in the best of hands between Justin Cook, Chris Sabat, Raleigh Pickens, and in our cast. And so I can say that with, maybe I couldn't say that in 1999, 2000, 2001, 2002, but since Kai on, and especially now, I am so proud of Funimation and the cast, and I challenge any other English cast to kill it like we have, because it's because we got
Broly
the experience.
Was great.
Bro, dude,
that's all good.
I don't think they could recast us with the very best Academy Award-winning thespians, and they could do a better job. I don't think they could. I know that sounds cocky, and
you flew to Texas to do that movie. You insisted on working in the studio with Sabat because you wanted to make sure it was the best it could be. You didn't want to do remote access.
Yeah, and remote access doesn't necessarily mean lower quality, but when you're doing the series and
the energy in the room, right?
The energy in the room, and plus we knew the energy of the film was going to be up higher, and we knew Chris was going to be directing. And Raleigh and I have a very good and quick working relationship when we work remotely. And when you throw Chris in the mix, you've got 3 people doing stuff, and it's just a lot easier to just have Raleigh be silent when we're doing the movie and do his badass engineering. Which he does extraordinarily fast, and then Chris is doing all the directing. But then when we work remotely, we have an engineer here locally who also stays silent, and then Raleigh directs me. And even Raleigh, it's so funny. Raleigh lets me self-direct. Only in the last few years have I been like, okay, I want some direction here, because I knew the character so well. Only in recent years have I trusted Raleigh to just guide the character in any way emotionally, because I'm really sensitive to the character. It's so funny. People ask me, like, am I a lot like Goku or am I not? In one way that I'm very much like Goku. Goku likes to find out if he's the best or the strongest. And I think one of the weird things I did early on in my career is I don't play the political game very well, because my attitude is how do I know if I'm the best if you're hiring me because you like me? And I foolishly thought that if I was just a good actor and I could say whatever I wanted and I would still get hired based on merit, because that's what I wanted to test myself to see if I was any good at this, right? And I found out that's not true. But that, there's always going to be stupid nepotism and bullshit, which is annoying. It's just, I wish it was more meritocratic. But I still try hard to make sure, and that's the reason people think I'm insecure about my job. If I was ever insecure about my job, it's because Barry Watson constantly threatened to fire me. If I, slip up here and there, and that's the way we were constantly threatened with our jobs if we slipped up or did anything. And I think that's really a carrot and stick management. I don't like the stick management, and they could have embraced us like Justin has and supported us, and let us grow and blossom as actors and characters and guide us, which is what a good producer does. And that's why half the reason the dub is, I don't know, half, maybe all the reason, I don't know, is because Justin, is the bottom line as to what gets approved in it. Justin, Chris, and that crew.
And he's known you for 20 years.
Yeah, I've known Justin for 20 years. I've worked with him for 20 years. We have a really good working relationship. We're very good about having phone calls where we go, okay, this is friends talking now. And then I bitch really hardcore. And then I say something. He goes, well, now I have to answer you as a producer. So we have to put on different hats. And so we have a really wonderful, he's such a good friend. And you wouldn't find, I don't think you can find a better steward for the property in America, or for any language, in my opinion, than Justin Cook, to be a steward for Akira Toriyama and Toei and Shueisha and taking the brand.
Dragon Ball.
Yeah, and Justin's not in charge of everything. I mean, a lot of the marketing and a lot of other things are handled by a lot of other great folks at Funimation who are doing a really good job. But as far as he's the head of production, so if I say I want to stick Son Goku on here and he says no, he gets to say no. And we considered it,
but
actually.
He did say yes once.
He did say yes once, and we did consider it one other time in an episode and one other time in a movie, I think, and we decided against it largely because it wasn't that necessarily epic a badass a moment, and it didn't flap right. You know, it was a particularly special moment when we did that one. And even on I think it was. Oh yeah, you were asking me about this the other day. I don't mind addressing this. Maybe this will be an interesting question for you, and I want to get to the other questions. It was the Gogeta. We were Kakarot and Vegeta, known as Gogeta. What were you telling me? You were texting me.
I could have sworn in the dub you said Kakarot and Vegeta, but you told me that you said Goku and Vegeta, which makes Gogeta. But maybe it's my own memory. I mean, I have not watched the movie since we saw it at the premiere.
Since we saw it. Okay, so I can explain what happened there.
I gotta see that. Again.
Okay, I'm pretty sure it's Goku and Vegeta, and here's what happened. In the script, it said, "We are the combination of Kakarot and Vegeta. We are Gogeta," or something like that.
And that's wrong.
Well, that's what it says in the Japanese script.
Yeah.
And if you listen to it in Japanese, you hear him saying "da-da-na Kakarato."
No, actually,
he doesn't.
No,
Are you sure?
Yes, I'm sure. He says Goku and Vegeta in the Japanese version. I got a friend. Three of my friends went out there to watch it. Yeah.
Okay, good to know, because I swear when we listened to it, I thought I heard.
You probably got a bad script.
Well, no, I thought we were listening to the Japanese original recording.
Okay.
So when I heard it, I thought he says Kakarato, but in the script it says we are Kakarot and Vegeta. And I looked at it and I wanted to go pure Kakarot, but I was looking at it going, that doesn't make sense. Why would you call a character, wouldn't he be called Kakajita or Kakita?
Well, that's what Vegito is. Vegito is Vegeta and Kakarato. Yeah,
right.
Gogeta is Goku and Vegeta. Yeah.
Well, right. So I'm 99.9% sure, in fact, because I don't even think I recorded a version that was Kakarot and Vegeta. I don't even think I recorded a version of that. So I'm 99% sure I said. And if it's not, I actually would like to correct that, because that's what I remember that day. I remember having that discussion with Chris, going, wait, is this Goku and Vegeta or Kakarot? And we look at the script, it says Kakarot and Vegeta. I'm like, yeah, that doesn't make sense, though. It's Gogeta. And Chris goes, I'll just go with Goku. And I'm like, yeah, that makes sense to me. We should probably just do Goku and Vegeta. Yeah. And then we listened to it in Japanese, and I thought I heard Kakarato or something. I thought, because Japanese, it can be, if you don't listen to it all the time, which I used to have a better ear for it when I was directing, because I would go over my shows over and over in Japanese when I was working on them, and then I would work on it in English. But anyway, I'm pretty damn confident that it is Goku and Vegeta, and I'm glad we did that. So it should be correct. Yeah. And I will actually ask Raleigh when I see him next, just because we would need that leeway time if that was a correction we'd want to make.
Yeah,
we would need that leeway time for the theatrical release, which it's probably too late for.
Or but the Blu-ray.
Yeah, the Blu-ray. Yeah. And we do make corrections for Blu-ray sometimes. Even Japan did on early Dragon Ball Super. We saw we saw animation corrections.
Oh yeah, because the production fell apart at the beginning of that series.
Yeah, which there's definitely some inside jokes in the booth about how they hired some 8-year-old in some frames to draw it. But we were just joking. Well, we're glad. Look, that gives me respect to Toei, because I'm like, which I already do respect them. But if you're going to go back after the fact and reanimate some shit to fix it, that's a long ass expensive process. So I'm real impressed that they did that. I think that's pretty great. Right. So anyway, what other question we gonna do? I'm gonna play some funky bass licks.
The last Mythbuster here. The last.
Keep playing. Oh, sorry. I was playing my funky bass licks.
I love it. Okay. This is a great treat for everybody. Okay. Goku Black. All right.
Yeah.
Seinfeld theme. All right. Goku Black.
No, I was playing Rush.
Okay.
I was playing Red Barchetta. Remember Red Bart? Okay. The end at the bass little end.
Yes.
Oh, sorry.
It's all good. All right.
Go ahead.
Goku Black. All right. Misconceptions about the character. I want to first of all explain to the people that when you first voiced Goku Black for Xenoverse 2, you nor me nor anybody, not even Nozawa, I don't even think she knew that Zamasu was Goku Black. That was a huge mystery for like 4 months.
Yeah.
So your voice had to change. I wanted you to kind of elaborate on the Goku Black story.
Well, Goku Black, look, kiddos, this is the artistic aspect of how art's made. I mean, it's usually, the always way I joke about genius and art is that your brain regurgitates gold, your right brain regurgitates gold, and your left brain hammers it into fine jewelry, which is kind of not a good metaphor anymore because they disproved the whole left brain, right brain thing when it comes to their creativity. But I used to say that. The point is that when you're making a cake, sometimes there's, a little messiness as you're trying to make that cake. And when you're trying to make a cake between two countries and people stealing stuff makes it to where you can't release stuff early. So you got to be secret and you can't even tell your English counterparts what's going on. What happened with Goku Black happened. So if you want to mitigate that, hey, everybody, stop stealing stuff. No, I'm just, my point is that that's actually a big part of the reason. They want to keep secrets. So we get the scripts for the video game, and Goku Black's already in it. We're not on the series yet, of the Goku Black art. We're not even close to it. And I go, so I asked Chris, I go, what's this Goku Black character about? What is it? What is he? Is he in a, I'm trying, because, all kinds of weird stuff can happen in Dragon Ball. It could have been a Ginyu situation where the frog switches, which it ended up kind of being in a way.
Yes.
So I was wondering, am I playing this voice? Who's going to play it? And we were looking for a good, fresh actor to play Zamasu. And we ended up with James Marsters. We were trying to keep that secret for a number of reasons until we released it. Largely, we just wanted it to be a really cool, big surprise. And now the cat's out of the bag, so I don't really care. But
he's always playing someone with a green face.
Yeah, and he's a huge Dragon Ball fan too. And he was actually fighting for the Dragon Ball on the Dragon Ball Evolution. He told me stories about he was trying to fight for the movie to be right because he'd watched a ton of Dragon Ball at that point. He's like, no, this is not right. This is not right. But he's an actor and he had to go do his job. So that's the reason that movie sucked. Well, there's a lot of reasons that movie sucked. It doesn't have anything to do with James Marsters. He was trying to make it better. But anyway, I'm talking about the Dragon Ball Evolution movie. But but as far as what happened was we get the thing and they go, the only thing Japan will tell us is that it's evil Goku. And I'm like, okay.
They did not tell you anything about who he really is. So what could you do? Like, that's the thing.
Well, and I wanted to do a new and interesting voice, and I was like, well, what's the opposite of, if he's the opposite of Goku and he's evil Goku's high and chipper, and the only choice I could think of without doing something that, would be really wrong was just, okay, I'm going to do the opposite of Goku, low, rough, and evil versus high, clear, and clean, which was the only amount of data I had. So I did that, and then James Marsters comes in, he does Zamasu, and we get into the Goku Black Rosé stuff. He does this really, and the language is written very floral and very fluid and posh for Zamasu, as well as Goku Black Rosé. And they don't really explain what Goku Black Rosé is versus Goku Black. They don't really tell that to us either. So we look at the language, we look at and I have to listen to what Zamasu does. So the logic is, if Zamasu is inside Goku's Black's body, anything James does, I have to copy, at least when it comes to inflection, accent, spirit. But the voice box, my voice box, has to be Goku. Now, one would argue, well, Sean, you change your voice too much. It doesn't sound like Goku. I'm like, yeah, but it's still got some Goku elements in it because it's coming out of my natural voice. And Goku, about 60% of Goku is my natural voice. So the logic I'm using is, okay, Zamasu's in Goku's body. It needs to sound like Zamasu. So when Zamasu's standing next to Goku Black or Goku Black Rosé, it sounds like fundamentally, spiritually, the same person having a conversation with themselves. I don't know if we achieved that. We were trying really hard because then what happened is I did the very thick accent for the game. The Japanese client wrote back and said, "We love this. This is great." I'm like, "Cool. Japanese love it. Woohoo!" I wasn't necessarily Toya, but I think it was Namco Bandai.
Right.
And I love those guys. They make the best games, and they treat us so well. They're so awesome. So I do that, and then James comes in to do the series, and he's a real serious actor, and he's really trying to bring your realness to this character. And when an actor does that, a lot of times they settle into an accent differently. Go watch season 1 of The Simpsons. It's very different than what they're doing now. Right. And so he's settling into the character, cleaning it up, changing it. I'm recording behind him. We're on a tight production schedule. A couple times he came in, fixed some things. He's lessening the accent here and there, but it's still there. People are up my butt about it. I'm like, look, I'm just following this guy. So finally, Chris, I remember in one session, Chris goes, "I'm not used to you being this insecure." And I'm like, I'm not used to having my direction being given by another actor I'm following, which I didn't mind. I'm just like, I'm not used to it. So I was really double checking things over and over and trying to listen to it, making sure. Well, it's tricky, and we also had a limited amount of time. And so the bottom line for me was, you know, and it's the same thing, you know, with one of my castmates who lost their voice and they still sounded really good, is if the acting's there and the scene works, why are you so bent out of shape about the accent? Like, why are you so worried about it? Does Goku sound evil? Does he sound enough like Goku? I think he does. Is the acting there? I thought it was. There was an article on IGN or somewhere that said fans liked it. So it's weird for me to have to come out here and defend it. It's like, well, it's just not like Masako. Look,
well,
I love
think
Masako.
it's more so you explaining why it changed, and it didn't change.
Oh, I see.
You wanted it to change. It's because you were following James.
Well, yeah, I was trying. Yeah, change because I was trying to follow him, and I got a limited amount of time to do that. So, you know, I didn't take the same approach maybe Masako Nozawa did because I'm not Japanese and I'm not trying to be a parrot. Now you're saying, well, you're being a parrot for James. Yes, for a very good reason, because I'm trying to be a spirit of him inside another character's body. So, I would love to be able to tighten it up a little more. Although when I watch the fight scenes, especially when I watch a lot of that arc, I'm really proud of it. And I think it sounds really good. Particularly, I was really going out of my way to make sure that the Goku Black and Goku Black's Rosé's fight reacts didn't sound exactly like Goku's fight reacts. So it sounds evil and lusty and bloodlusty is the word I'm looking for. And Goku's reactions sound like Goku's. And when I watch the fight scenes down, I mean, to me, it sounds like two different characters fighting, but close enough to where it's still, you know, Goku. Plus, Goku needed to sound, Goku Black needed to sound, you know, Drawley pointed this out to me, that there's one scene where some of the characters are a little confused about who's who. And if that's the case, well, then Goku needs to sound a little more like Goku. And really probably should have sounded, you know, I was just following James, but probably should have sounded more like Goku, but just evil than having an accent. Although it's interesting to me that the Goku Black Rosé language was written from Japanese, very posh and with a lot of food metaphors.
Frieza talks.
Yeah, it's very much like Frieza. It was written that way originally. I don't know how a Goku voice would pull that off as well as just talking like this. You know what I mean? Like it's I
thought the finished product was great.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the question I'd ask you as a fan, I'd be like, well, so were you like, oh my God, like, did it, you know, affect you emotionally? Did it, you know, serve the story? Did it serve the piece? Did it,
I was surprised that's how good James was. James was great.
James is freaking great. I love that. That's like I was surprised how good James is. You, Sean, not so much. No, I think.
No, I meant to say that it doesn't surprise me if you're good.
No, no. I was joking. I was I'm fishing for compliments. But what about me, Geekdom? And by the way,
you don't need me to validate you.
No, I don't. And for those of you who think it's funny, I people don't realize I call Geekdom because I think it's funny to just call him Geekdom and not by his real name. So when you guys call me out on it on Twitter, I'm letting you know I'm doing it on purpose because I think it's funny. Because I think it's funny just to call somebody, like, I always think it's funny to call anybody by their screen name because it's such a weird thing.
It is weird.
You know,
it's
what if you had to? What if you had a friend? What if everybody insisted on calling it on their screen names? And it's like, you know, hey, hand up ass 552, how's it going? Like, hey, Geekdom 101, what's up? You know, I don't know. I like playing with people's names. I think it's, you know, I find it humorous.
And then you have go ahead. Sorry, we're gonna say.
No, go ahead. No, keep going, man.
No, I was just saying you have like wacky nicknames that are based on the fake names. So.
Oh, I have.
Like my friend
that
you talked to in that one convention, you mentioned my name, Cal. His name's not Cal. His name's Samir, but I call him Cal. Cal's not even his real name. He's a Superman fan.
Well, you know, if he's gonna call himself Cal, that's what I'm calling him. I mean, you know, it's funny. I don't know, it cracks me up.
So Goku's always being pushed to his limits. We're gonna wrap this up here, and I want to ask you this.
No,
question.
I actually geeked him. Here's what I want to do.
Oh, yeah.
When we talk, I didn't get through all. I want to get through all the questions, so I'm just gonna try to answer faster. Okay?
No, we're good. We're wrapping it up. It's all good.
Did I get through all the questions?
Yeah. Well, yeah, pretty much. I mean, there's other questions I had for you, like Fallout stuff. That's not really important right here.
Fallout 4.
Well, because you're in it, right?
Yeah, I'm strong in that. Strong like.
I was just gonna ask you, like, do you play the game as well?
Oh, I finished it. I ended up siding with the elitist faction, the science, because I thought, well, that's the best chance of humanity. They are a totalitarian regime, but they do have the best tech, and they do have some pure DNA amongst them as a society. So maybe over time, you know, so I picked those guys because I thought they had the best chance of. Although I probably shouldn't have.
Also, since you're a fan of RPGs, Have you ever tried Dragon Quest? It's Toriyama. It's his style.
I played Dragon Quest. Here's what's funny. It's so funny that I didn't realize it was Toriyama till like this year because I played
neither when I was a kid.
I played the shit out of Dragon Quest when it came out, and I was an adult. And they just re-released, I think, Dragon Quest on Switch, and my Switch died the other day. I can't play my Switch. Like I plugged it in, I left it overnight. I show up, it's got a weird lightning symbol on it, and I'm like, what the hell? And I try to charge it. No, I tried to charge it for several days. It's just dead. I can't. Either the battery's shorted, or so I'm gonna have to send it to Nintendo. But my Switch is dead. I was playing Diablo on it a lot with Bree. I played Diablo a lot a couple of years ago, and then the last few weeks I've been getting back into it.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to like level up my characters and stuff. I love to give my characters really, really funny names. Like I have a witch doctor named Ooh Ee Ooh Ah Ah. Get it?
Yeah, of course.
Do you get the? Yeah. So I got a witch doctor named Ooh Ee. I got a paladin or crusader named Jeebus, which is based on how Peter Griffin always refers to Jesus as Jeebus.
Jeebus, yes.
But there's actually a character in the Bible named Jeebus. I've got a barbarian named Duh. He's just dumb. He's Duh. And then I named my wizard Crispin because he's voiced by Crispin Freeman. And I thought it'd be funny if I ever show a screenshot. I'm like, hey, I called him Crispin. I'm like, hey, dude, I named my wizard Crispin because you're Crispin and he voices you. You voice him, I mean.
It's like if you catch Lucario and name him Sean, right?
Oh, yeah. Oh yeah, totally.
So you played Dragon Warrior then back in the day? Because I did too. I mean, I found out it was Toriyama when I was like in my teens, but the art style was so similar, but not exactly.
Yeah.
And it was like, okay, wow, like that's great.
Yeah, I want to play it again, but I gotta hopefully it won't seem too slow to me. I was a big RPG guy back in the day. I had a Commodore VIC-20. I used to write code on it, and then I played on a lot of old video game systems when I was a kid. I think the greatest thing about video games, I don't think young kids appreciate, I'm gonna sound like an old man, is that video games are great because remember, imagine you're watching TV, and then one day someone walks up to you and says, hey, how would you like to control things in the TV? Right. And you go, holy shit, I can control things in the TV? Like what? Pong. That looks stupid, but that's the coolest thing ever. Like, it looks stupid at first, but when you play Pong in 1977, and that's the first time you've ever controlled anything on a TV, when I play that emotion back, it's just as exciting as playing Diablo. When I play that emotion in that context back in 1977, it's just as exciting as playing Diablo. And that's not to say Diablo is like Pong. I'm saying relative to the state of what I was in, the feeling was the same because up until that point, TV was just something you stared at and you couldn't control. But it was great. Anyway, I digress about video games.
No, it's all good. We're talking about it. So, do you have any aspirations to get back into music? Because you're playing right now.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. It's rude. It's just fun to do.
No, it's all good.
Sometimes I think about quit voice acting entirely and going back into classical music. There's a lot of. I love everything about voice acting. I hate pretty much everything about the entertainment industry, and I'm not even at the bad end of the kiddie pool. I'm in the nice end of the kiddie pool, and I'm referring to all that crazy stuff you hear about in Hollywood about Weinstein and the fact that women and minorities have it so bad. I haven't had to deal with that as a white male, which I benefit from. But the fact that the shit I do deal with, even though I'm in a more of a privileged position, which I think sucks. The stuff I do deal with is so odious to me. I'd rather just lose myself in a musical instrument and play in an ensemble and not look back, because everything I have to do to be a voice actor outside of, meeting the fans and being in the booth are my two favorite things.
Right.
But everything else I have to deal with, contract negotiations, agents, nepotism, people trying to steal your work, people trying to ride your coattails, people trying to, and I'm dealing with stuff that's way less odious than what things I just mentioned people have to deal with. My girlfriend can act, and she's talking to me the other night about acting. And I said, God, I want to support you like crazy. And now I'm terrified of you to go into any kind of scenario where, and I'm largely terrified for two reasons. If she ever bumps into a situation where some guy's inappropriate with her, I'm worried for her. And I'm also worried about what I'm going to do to that guy. So
right?
I'm like, okay, I'm really protective of Bree. So I'm like, honey, I want you to protect yourself and do your own thing. I get it. But somebody messes with you like that, they're going to get a visit from me.
You got to be a man, man.
It's not, and that would probably be after I exhausted all legal options, because if I'm going to go to jail, I'd rather do that last. But I'm not having it, man. I'm not going to have any of that crap with my girl. So I'm like, you're talented. I want you to do it. But, just, let me help if I. And she's like, I got this. She's a girl who grew up hunting from Philly. Not Philly, from Pennsylvania. She's not from Philly. She's from northeastern Pennsylvania, Sweet Valley. And she grew up. Her dad's a hardcore hunter, and she grew up shooting guns. And I just got her on Shooty Fruity earlier today, and she just outshot me. She's like, pew, 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 with,
wow.
Yeah, she's badass with a weapon. So I think she can handle herself.
She'll be good.
She'll be good. I just still am very protective of her. So I worry about that sort of stuff. But yeah, I do think about doing music. I think about. I'm also working on my own animated series, and I've got a lot of. I'll be honest. I've been pretty burnt out. I think I love Goku so much. Goku's been there for me when I got divorced, and when the chips are down, and I'm real depressed, and I get to lose myself in that character. Even if Goku's got to fight. I know that when I've got work next week, even if I don't want to work, if something's bothering me or something, I escape into the character for my escape. Whereas kids who watch the show escape into the show as a viewer. I transform myself into that space, so to speak, psychologically, and then I live in that space, and I escape. I have my own escapism for my own trials and tribulations. And Goku's been a steadfast companion. For me since I got the part, and through divorce, through death, through trials and tribulations. And so that's one of the reasons I'm so grateful to Akira Toriyama, Funimation, Toei, anybody who's, Justin, anybody who's allowed me to play this character. That's why I'm so grateful, because I wouldn't be here without it. I probably, I didn't have I didn't have the easiest life in my youth. So to have this gift is a really
a blessing.
I don't even like to use that word, because I think it's something beyond that.
I understand where you're coming from. I feel the same way in many ways.
I get moved to tears when I can tell by the tone of your voice what kind of hardcore old school fan you are, and your attitude is really similar to lots of the hardcore fans I meet, even ones who piss me off, because at least they're hardcore about it and they have a lot of passion. And I know that feeling. I wouldn't want to be here if it wasn't for Dragon Ball, or I got through this if it wasn't for Dragon Ball. It's that escapism. It seems like it's just a show and it's just fun, but it's a bigger, deeper thing. I think a lot of shows are this way, but
right.
for Dragon Ball fans, entertainment, it's why we do what we do. But escape, it's a way to, it's a way to teach. It's a way to, inspire. It's a way to forget your troubles. And the fact that my job is to help other people have an easier time on Earth through suspension of disbelief, well, that's a very sacred thing. And that's why I'm so hardcore about the character. I want you to really believe Goku exists somewhere in the universe. So that's why if I had my way, I wouldn't do the voice publicly, and I wouldn't write for the character. And other than correcting the script, and I wouldn't, ad lib things that are inappropriate. And that's why I don't like asked to do quotes from different things, because I'm just like, I live with this character all the time. For me, I'm one with the character, regardless if it comes from Japan and Moscow's the original, which I totally respect. For me, it's a space I live in and I'm committed to. And I don't want to regret doing it if I'm not going to get the respect that I think any actor deserves who makes this level of commitment to a character. So it's a very sacred and special thing that I get to go into a booth and record. And if I'm going to do that, if I'm going to hold your soul in my hand when I'm performing, and I'm going to take you on a journey to make you believe that in some corner of the universe, especially if you're a very young kid and don't realize Super Saiyans don't exist yet, and right. Don't realize Santa Claus doesn't exist yet. Spoiler alert. Watch out, Christmas up. If I'm going to have that privilege, if I'm going to have that situation, I'll be goddamned if I don't make you believe I am Goku. And in order to make you believe I am Goku, I have to be Goku. And in order to be Goku, I have to own that position as the voice of Goku. So that's why people think I'm like very ownershipy and territorial. That's a testament to my commitment to the character. That doesn't mean I don't acknowledge, as I did previously in this interview, and did 15, 20 years ago, and did as recently as last year when somebody brought me a Pioneer thing. Hey, guess what? This ain't me. Because I make no bones about it. I'm not interested in fooling fans. I'm only interested in fooling fans into believing that Goku's a real character. In other words, suspending your disbelief. Right. I'm not interested in fooling you as a human being when I meet you and I'm signing something that you want me to sign. I'm going to make sure that I'm the guy you listen to. Otherwise, I don't want to sign it because I want you to find the guy you like. And if it's me, I think I'm repeating myself. I just want to make sure my philosophy is clear, because you know how the internet is, Geekdom. Yes. If I leave out a piece of information, somebody's gonna deduce and fill it in and say, well, I drew this conclusion about Sean, and now I'm going to attack him on Twitter and blah, 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 which they done to me before, which I think is ignorant and hilarious. You know, and I've been guilty of that a couple times in my life on Twitter. That's why I try not to do it anymore. I've become more sensitive. You know, my youth, I was a pretty brash and direct individual. And as I've gotten older, I've become, and after decades of going to therapy, I've become very sensitive to someone's emotional state. In other words, we're emotional creatures, right? So if a fan's coming up to me, and this is why I'm regretful that a couple of times I haven't been always totally cool with everybody, is if a fan comes up to me, I put myself in their shoes. They're in a very receptive, very excited, and very hopeful and nervous state. And so that means that anything you do is amplified in their brain. So if I am even just slightly rude, it's 10 times bigger. And if I'm extra rude, I destroy them, right? So I've become more and more aware as time goes on with other humans that when you're interacting with someone and they're listening to you, you're basically given an audience as a direct conduit into their soul. And so if I'm going to do that as an actor or as a human, and I've got a direct conduit into what's going on to you, and you've opened yourself up to hearing me work as Goku, or hearing me speak on a panel, or meeting me and saying, "Hi, Sean, I'm so happy to meet you. You're my childhood," and I say, "I'm having a shitty day. I don't want to talk to you," which I've never said. That's a pretty big deal, and I probably shouldn't do that. But at the same time, I don't want to lie. So when I'm late and I'm like, "Sorry, I had a digestion issue," I don't keep that stuff secret, because I'm like, I'm not gonna do this weird, I'm a, Hollywood. Oh, I've got a secret illness. I don't mind telling people, like, I overslept, or I was up late signing stuff for somebody, or I'm working, or I ate the food late. But the point is that I'm really disappointed in everybody in America, myself included, when we become this culture around just being so direct and dickhead. And I miss the days of Victorian times where, or not that was a better time, but it was in terms of how we communicated with each other, where if I were going to say to you, Geekdom, I would say, like, "Excuse me, Mr. Geekdom, I'm sorry to be so forward, but would you mind if I used your restroom?" Like something like, they're so polite,
right? Where,
you're really, I think that's because you're aware that they're aware you're interacting with someone, and maybe this is why Japanese are so polite. I don't know. Because there's a certain, I think that level of politeness and old school politeness and discourse goes a long way in terms of making that discourse more effective and more and less painful and less harmful. I would hate for us to win as a society through destroying each other in the process by just being dicks to each other, which is what politics and Twitter and all the, even when I see fights between celebrities, and I've been involved in some of those things with some of my castmates before, and I'm just like, I'm not perfect, and I've screwed up, and I'm just like, I just don't like it. And so the older I get, I'm just like, look, you can make your point without being a dick. And I know that's true for me. And I've definitely been the guilty party in that way. And so, as we end the interview, I'm immediately thinking, did I say anything that is going to have me attacked or flamed? Have I been honest as I want to be? Of course, I've been absolutely as honest as, I'm not lying about anything. I might have left some sensitive things out because I don't think the public, needs to know those things. Mm-hmm. And it's personal, right? And a lot of the stuff I even answered tonight, I don't think people necessarily deserve to know, but I'm happy to tell them, largely because I have to dispel lies about me, which is also annoying. But at the end of the day, all that goes out the window in 2 moments. When I step in the booth to record Goku, and when I get to my autograph table and I see all those smiling faces, and I know some of them probably hate my guts, but probably not. But there's probably some fan in there that maybe likes Ian better. I don't know. I don't care anymore. What I'm saying is that once I get in that line, or if I get to do an interview with you or whatever, it's a pretty damn cool thing, And I can say that I can die tomorrow and feel like I've done a good thing on Earth with what I've done, and while I'm not a perfect person, it's been a hell of a ride, and I'm super excited and grateful. And you've got that big news coming out of Japan the last couple of days, and so maybe there's new stuff on the horizon. And I think if I'm going to end on anything, as long as there's a need for Goku, and Toei or Funimation or whoever wants to hire me, I will always be Goku. If the fans want it, I'm there. So I hope hope they'll have me.
Well, that's the best way to end it, but I do have one more question.
Sure.
So Goku's always being pushed to his limits.
Yeah.
Who or what pushes Sean Schemmel to overcome adversity and do great things for himself and his loved ones?
My girlfriend. because my girlfriend and my therapist, and she goes with me every week. My personal growth, it pushes me. That, and I would say primarily those two, but also very much so, I've been challenged heavily by Justin Cook and Chris Sabat personally. And they're always willing to spar. I spar a lot with people. I mean, I'm very much like Goku. I purposefully am aggressive and spar with people when it comes to certain things.
Right.
I'm testing them to see if they'll be honest with me and real with me. I've discovered a few things about people who are shysters. If I come at somebody who's a shyster and I'm really aggressive and challenging about maybe what they're trying to sell me or what they're presenting to me, or they're a professional who's walked in and I'm challenging of whether or not they're a professional. If they're really a professional, they don't get upset. They just start talking to me and don't even pay attention to the fact that I'm being aggro. And then they just, do their professional thing and blow my mind with their professionalism. And at that point, I usually go, okay, sorry, I was just wasn't sure. And you're awesome. And then but the ones that are
tend to whine a lot. Too.
Right. So the shyster will like get defensive, or they'll tell me I'm wrong, or they'll invalidate me, or they'll, call me a baby, or they'll call me names or whatever. But the pros, I'll go to a doctor's office. I've been to doctors before. I don't trust doctors. And I almost went to medical school. So I have a decent background in biology, and I know a lot about science, but enough to be dangerous. So I'll go and I'll challenge a doctor. And the ones that are like condescending, or ones that are like, won't take my question. Like I have a vet, and I hate the fact the vet always tries to my veterinarian. Previous vets I had, they always like talk down to me. And I had this one vet who I said, look, just talk to me like I'm a doctor. I'll figure it out. I'm going to ask the tough questions. Just talk to me. Just spell it out. Use your terms. That's fine. And then I ask my questions. Then they ask their questions. I do it to establish trust, and I do it to see, to cut through bullshit. But the people that challenge me, and because of that, I have a really good relationship with Chris and Justin and my girlfriend especially, because it takes a lot of energy and a lot of processing to deal with my ass. And because, look at this interview, I'm filtering a lot just to talk to you. We've talked about
this interview for the past 6 months at least 15 times.
Yeah. Because what validates it is, when you leave no stone unturned, you can be very confident that you've made the decision of your own choicefulness and you're not being influenced by something else, because I'm very keenly aware of how we're of bias and how we can be influenced, and cognitive bias, etc. And so when you walk into a doctor's office, I go to a doctor's office, I go to this one doctor, they're a legit doctor, and then they started offering me homeopathy. And I'm like, wait a second, how'd you go to medical school? I have tested the shit out of this. I know this doesn't work. Somebody's going to go, oh, I know it. Like, no, there's no evidence. There's none, no empirical evidence. So I'm like, okay, I'm an evidence-based person, but I think about that evidence a lot because, people don't always think about things in that way. So the people who have been the most challenging to me have been, my girlfriend really challenges me because she's a very chill and very not intense individual. But she's also extremely. Our relationship's kind of like this, and this sounds like an insult, but it's actually a compliment if you know anything about astronomy. If I'm intense and hardcore like a sun, she's like a black hole that can just handle it all. Like she literally, and if anybody knows anything about black holes, they're way the hell more powerful than suns. So the fact that she is just able to, and for 8 years, dealt with my ass at my very worst, and stayed, and loves me anyway. And my friends, Chris could have dumped me as a friend. Because look, when I get mad and I go to town, I'm not messing around. And it takes a lot to deal with me. And it's not something I'm proud of. And it's not something that I think people should do. And it's something I've worked on my whole life. And I'm getting better and better at it, And the premiere itself was extremely challenging for me emotionally. A lot of people pulling at me and a lot of people driving me nuts. And a lot of people I had to interact with who I'm not necessarily keen with. And I had to do a lot of emotional stretching because I'm the kind of guy that wants to walk up to somebody and tell them what I think of them. But I don't do that. And it's taken I wouldn't be the man I am if these people had not dealt with me. And Goku himself, the character, had not dealt with me and forged me into the person I am. And I'm not done. I mean, I'm very, very far from perfect. I have a lot of work to do. But I find, actually, I was just telling Bree the other night, I was like, I've always been kind of felt like an outsider and felt very strange. It felt a little bit like an alien, and always felt I've always a very highly dissociative person. And And I've only in this last year, with the safe attachments I've had with Bree and my friends of 20 years, and some of my friends of even longer, have felt like I finally joined the human race. Only this year at age 50, which, you know, explains a lot of my quirky behavior over the last 20 years. You know, I did not grow up in a normal, healthy environment, and it affected me tremendously. I also think differently and think outside the box because I don't trust people. And it served me well because I've been able to figure out things and think outside the box because I don't trust people. I don't walk into a situation and assume that everybody on the staff is a pro at their job. I obnoxiously question the shit out of everybody, which is a horrible thing to do in the entertainment business. Funny thing is, 8 out of 10 times I'm right. It drives me nuts. It's like, I'll walk into a situation because I was an ADR director, I was an engineer, I was a script writer. I'll walk into a situation, I'll get real frustrated, and then I'll, you know, arrogantly question everybody. I'm right, and then I look like a dick. And so that's not a, you know, that's something I've done before, which I'm not proud of. But it's frustrating because you're sitting there in a session and you can hear that the engineer needs to change the tubes in the preamp, or you can hear that there's something wrong in the signal, or you know something's wrong with the script, or you know that that direction's not the right direction because you've done this before, and that some idiot's going, yeah, but I want to do it this way. And I'm like, oh my God, you're making my head hurt. And I just can't control myself. So it's definitely hurt me. But my point is, back to the question, maybe I've said too much personal information, but I don't really care. The point is that those people, Chris and Justin and Bree especially, Bree really, more than anybody, I would say Bree the most. She challenges me on a daily basis. Like, she is not a person. She's probably one of the kindest people you ever meet, and all she cares about is rainbows and sunshine and happiness. But do not mess with her. She is definitely not a person that you trifle with. And what's funny, because she'll kill you with kindness while she's doing it. She's just a very patient and Justin is. And first time I had a 3-hour conversation with Justin, I called Chris, and I go, yeah, I had a 3-hour conversation with Justin. Chris goes, God, I couldn't talk to you for 3 hours. I mean, Chris has a hard time handling my intensity, but he does.
I could talk to you for 8. It's always a good time.
Well, yeah. Well, I'm also not bitching about scripts or bitching about the character or bitching about, you know, I'm not doing my intense ranting that I have done before. And, you know, it all comes from care. You know, even Justin said that. I mean, he goes, look, the only reason I tolerate you ranting is because you care. I want an actor who cares about this show.
Yes.
He goes, I wouldn't cast anybody who doesn't care. You care more than anybody I can think of. And so, and that's not to say my castmates don't. I think my castmates very much care. Justin was just making a gross generalization.
You do care a lot, though. I mean,
I probably care too much.
Dragon Ball fans who have never even read the manga.
Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, that doesn't make any sense. In fact, I wish I could read the manga. I would love, if I were going to read the manga again, what I would want to do is I would want to read it in Japanese with a Japanese translator who grew up in Japan, who also is who's also as good at English as I am. Because sometimes people who are from Japan, they come to America and they speak good English, but not, you know, great. Every once in a while, I'll meet a rare Japanese person who's really, really good at English and really, really good at Japanese. And they basically spent their formative years in Japan and then maybe their teen years in America. And they have a very good understanding of both languages, not only language-wise, but poetically. Then I would want to sit down with that person and say, okay, we're going to read this together, and I'm going to ask you questions about every sentence. Right. Well, that's how I do it. I want that shit done right, man. That's all I want. And, you know, and so I whether or not you like my performance, to those fans that have been haters of me before, whether or not like your performance, I hope you can respect that at least I brought at least this attitude to it.
Right.
You know what I mean? Hard. Well, because look, I'm not a perfect actor, and my performance. I question my performance all the time, not because I'm insecure about it, but because I can't get outside of my own performance because I'm doing the performance. It's hard for actors to do that. It's hard to be objective when you're doing the stuff. So only usually after years go past do I think it's I can do that. It takes a long time, at least for me. So you know, I at 20 years doing this now, my life couldn't be better ultimately, and. And I'm looking forward to. I'm going to do a SAC anime coming up in a few weeks, and I'm looking forward to getting back in the convention circuit. Even though I hate traveling, because I'm excited. What I'm really excited about, I can't wait. I can't wait for the first convention I do after the movie's out, which will be. I'm doing SAC anime. I don't know what I've got booked. I think I might have one other show booked in January, and I'm pretty light in February, and then I got a bunch in March. So all the conventions I'm doing in March. What I can't wait for is for everybody just It's going to be, look, I get fans jumping up and down, screaming and hugging me right now. This is going to hype up the hypiest fans so much. They're not going to know what to do with themselves. Like, it's that good, man. You know it's true.
Yep, I was there. I saw it.
You were there. So it's off the hook, man. So I'm glad Akira Toriyama's like, I guess I did good. Maybe I'll do more. I mean, it's so cute how he does that. But that's fine with me. I just want to keep.
Me too.
I want to. Like I said, if I got to play Goku into 82 years old or 86 like Masako, I will do it. As long as my voice holds out and my lungs hold out. I don't think I'll live that long, but hopefully, because I'm not a Japanese woman. She's got two distinct advantages right there. Right.
They're very healthy over there.
Well, they generally have a great diet. In fact, I think there's backlash in Japan about too much American food creeping into the Japanese diet. So, when I was in Japan, man, what pisses me off about America, I'm going to bitch a little bit about America in terms of ramen, is that it's so hard to get good ramen in the U.S. And if you go to any Japanese airport, any ramen place in the airport in Japan has great ramen. When I was there a couple of years ago, I would just randomly grab. I'm like, this is amazing. It was as good as the stuff in town. And I come back to the U.S. I'm like, this sucks. Except for a couple places. Daikokuya is really good in L.A. It was really, really good. And there's a place. And Ian Sinclair, the voice of Whis, is a ramen snob. And when I asked him about his favorite ramen places, he goes, oh, in the world or just the U.S.? And I go, in the world? He goes, well, one of my favorite places is in London. And then he goes on and on, just like Whis, about which food places are the best places for ramen in the world. And then he narrows it down to the U.S. I'm like, well, just the U.S. It's L.A. actually? And he goes, oh, Daikokuya, is that in your top 10? Well, not exactly. I go, but is it good? He's like, yeah, it's good. And I'm like, okay, well, I think it's amazing. But I'm digressing about ramen.
Right.
You know what's funny? I will be honest with you. I want to tell you a story real quick, and then I'll get off the phone. Everybody will tell me, I'm your number one fan, and and I always love it when they say that. And I don't really have fan favorites, and I'm not going to mention his name, but because I have a kind of there's a young fan I've met. I guess he's like college or late teens, and he's a very interesting guy. And he randomly texts me through my Twitter, random emoticons, and ask me to have a good Friday and stuff. And I love that guy so much because it's I love that relationship with him because it's kind of a special thing because I don't know if he's autistic or not. I think he might be. But what I think is great about him is there's an innocence and a simpleness to our relationship that, while as much as I appreciate fans that are like, oh, my God, I love it, and want to ask me a bunch of questions, and that's really awesome. I mean, that can get tiring after 20 years of doing that. But I still am always happy I always treat a fan like this. I'm always like, okay, well, they've never met me before, even though I've answered this question 80 million times. Right. So I try to keep it fresh. But this guy's so interesting because he doesn't, it's just this nice little, I guess the reason I bring it up is because for me, some of the solace I get from all the stress of this is just this random fan who just found me on Twitter, and I've met him once in person. And every Friday I get a text that just says Happy Friday with a bunch of random emoticons. And then I'll write back one thing, like one sentence thing with a bunch of random emoticons. And then I'll go, haha, talk to you later. And it's just a fun, it's such a beautiful thing. And it's such an innocent, it's like, I feel like I'm interacting with some weird basic spirit of Goku. It's almost kind of like, it's almost exactly like, actually my relationship with him is almost exactly like when Goku talks to the Zennies. It's like, I'm Goku and he's like one of the Zennies.
Right.
And
the innocence.
The kind of conversations we have are that simple, and it's just randomly every Friday. And sometimes I skip a few Fridays because I just don't want to do it too. I hope he doesn't hear this, but and I'm not gonna mention his name, but I'm like, yeah, he's probably my favorite fan for that reason because it allows me to be in this place. And that's no disrespect to any other fan who loves it, but
other than I guess Bree is your real favorite fan.
Oh well, she's not a fan; she's my partner. That's different.
Well, you know what I mean.
Yeah, I know what you mean, but that's on a whole nother level. But it's funny because it allows me to have that kind of. I have these Goku moments with him where I feel almost the most like Goku through these tiny conversations, and that's like one strange gift that I've gotten from being on this show that I particularly cherish because it allows me to again be just really purely innocent with another human without feeling like someone's pulling at me or asking something of me or pulling or or trying to get me to do something or using me, and I'm not saying that fans make me feel that way. It can feel that way when things get too far, when I get followed to my car and get asked for a selfie and then get asked for an autograph, then get asked for a video. I'm like, okay, I appreciate that, your enthusiasm, but it's kind of my day off and I'm trying to buy this computer. So, if, you know what I mean? It's like, you know, picture and autograph's fine, but now they want me to perform, and now it's my day off and I'm in a parking lot. Like, it's you know, that's that kind of moment. It starts weighing on you because you want to be there for the person, but you're also trying to be a human. And I'm just trying to preserve my humanity here, but I'm trying to simultaneously meet all the fans' needs and preserve my humanity. And this one in particular fan never goes that far with me. He's just like, how's it going? Yep, gotta go. Talk to you later. And he just sends me weird emoticons, and then I'll send back a Goku thumbs up, and then I'm done. And he's so sweet. And it's I guess I was thinking about the end of the interview, and I was thinking like what challenges me, and then I was thinking about, you know, special things that maybe I've never shared with people that I really enjoy. You know, you know what I mean? I guess that and my other favorite thing, like I said earlier, is when I see fan reactions when they're watching the show and I'm screaming my balls off and they're like, they're just freaking out and just, whoa, they get goosebumps. You know, and one of the reasons I do that, here's one last tidbit, is I made a very strict rule for myself. And I'm lucky because Masako maybe did not get this advantage. And this is an advantage when you dub, I think. I don't know if she does a lot of prelay or she does a lot of dubbing to the fight scenes and stuff. But because we dub everything, we never do anything prelay for Dragon Ball, the energy is so intense on Dragon Ball. I told myself my voice has to sound as awesome as that looks in terms of intensity and loudness. So if you know, when back in the early days of Dragon Ball, when I did the whole Frieza transformation, that was the first time I ever had to get that intense. I'm like, well, this better sound like what this looks like.
Right.
Because if it doesn't, it's going to look like, Wah! It's going to sound like, like, you know, can't do that. You can't have that. Right. And I always feel like I've always just kissed the surface of it and I've never quite made it. Even on the Broly movie, I'm always thinking I'm right under where I need to be, which is perfect because if I feel like I met it, then I'd be done and then I wouldn't try anymore. So I'm glad I haven't never really caught the dragon, so to speak, or really, I don't know. I'm always trying to get it right, you know, right where it's like matching the intensity of what they're drawing, which is really hard to do because they draw some really intense shit.
Yeah.
I love it. I mean, I do. I mean, look, I used to want to be in a heavy metal band before I was a metalhead when I was younger, and I was a big prog rock guy, and I'm a really intense guy. And so I'm like, I always joke, I'm a member of the greatest rock band in the world that doesn't play music. And I am. I'm a member of the greatest rock band in the world that does not play music. At least on the show, we don't. we scream our balls off, and we fight, and we tell stories, and it's the best time of our lives. And I couldn't ask for a better job on Earth. So it's wonderful.
Well, I'm sure we're all going to be very happy to have you continue the role. And
thank you
for being here, man. Part 2, the whole enchilada is complete.
Whole enchilada. We finally did. I'm sorry I hem-hawed so long. You know, I wanted to answer all your questions, and I thought about it for a long time, and I was just like, I don't want to jerk geekdom around, but I want to make sure I do this right. And again, you know, I'm speaking to a lot of people. And I want to give them the answers they need, and I also want to protect the people who shouldn't be attacked, such as, you know, anybody who makes the show. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so
anybody who has ever worked on the show. No matter
well, yeah, I'm just like, you know, look, whether you agree or disagree, I guess I'm just, as an American, I'm just tired of there's a way to make your point without just, you guys suck. You guys sound like you're taking a crap in the toilet. And like, really? I mean, okay, so when someone gets on my Twitter and they ask me to, you know, they say that, I'm like, okay, well, if you think I'm going to change it, no, you've ruined my day and maybe you feel better. And now this sucks. Like, it's like, there's nothing positive about it. And it's not like, even if they were polite, I could take it because I can't have too many hands in the pot. You know, I can't have a giant Twitter following steering how I'm playing a character. I'm an actor and I'm going to make my choices. You know, and I respect any other actor who's doing that. So I just wanted to make sure the interview was, you know, as forthcoming as I could be, because there's been, you know, been other times I've done interviews and I've said stuff that I regret saying, and I've maybe hurt some people's feelings, and I'm just like, I don't want to be a part of that anymore. You know, it doesn't mean I'm not going to slip up again, but you know, and I'm glad that you try to fight the BS online and the haters and the trolls and stuff, and you try to run a respectable podcast and try to do it right. And you know, even if some shyster gets more hits than you or makes more money than you can go to bed at night going, hey man, I'm trying to do a noble thing here. And I think that's going to speak more volumes in your life than any other kind of shortcuts.
Well, the beautiful thing about our community is that the shysters never last. Yeah,
that's the thing. One thing I like about Dragon Ball fans is, like, I always warn new actors when they get on the show. I said, don't go get on a forum and don't go start talking to Dragon Ball fans, because they will eat you for lunch. They're the most passionate, hardcore fans. You can go get on a forum once you have earned your place in the Dragon Ball universe as a new actor who knows their shit. Then you can get on the forum and talk. But until then, don't make the mistake I made and talk on a forum, 20 years ago when you get your ass handed to you, and you're just trying to have fun with people, and you know what I mean. So I love that about this. I feel like I could go if there was some weird apocalyptic thing, and like I could go to any country and find a Dragon Ball fan and find shelter if like Hitler came back and was destroying us all. I don't know. It's a fucking crazy idea. But, there's some crazy post-apocalyptic world. I could be in some other country and go, yeah, I play Goku in America. Like, yes, we will help Goku. Because, like, the Dragon Ball fans would come creep out from the woodwork and save us all. You know what I mean? Like, they're there. Like, kind of like in Spider-Man when all the guys on the train help Spider-Man. That's how I feel about Dragon Ball fans. Don't mess with them. Respect them. And they'll be there when you need them. So I love them all for that.
If you're real, you'll last forever.
Yeah, man, and that's what I love about Dragon Ball fans. They're not messing around, and I'm not messing around. So I'm definitely I'm a good company. There's no question about that. I'm still grinning. We're about to end here, and I'm just thinking. All I keep thinking about as I'm picturing, my line at the first con after the movie and the excitement. I'm hoping is, maybe I can start a thing here. I don't know if I can start a thing, but I really was hoping, maybe you can promote this, Geekdom. I'm hoping fans will leave the theater and just do a selfie reaction, either a still shot or I just walked out of the theater and this is my short video about what I thought. Oh my God. Cause I can't imagine.
Will do that.
Yeah. I hope they'll do that. Cause I would love to see a whole collection of that. Because I want to see the reaction, I think there's gonna be one fan who goes, yeah, it was all right, it was okay. And I'm like, okay, well, I guess you didn't open your eyes, but everybody else is gonna love it. There's gonna be one fan that does it, but everybody else is gonna. I couldn't have imagined a movie this good 20 years ago that ticks so many boxes, not just for hardcore fans, but for new fans, as well as our legacy cast being a part of it. And being able to carry on, the tonality of our voices from the series into the movie and having that whole ether and everything together. That's how it should be done, man. And so I keep picturing that first convention after the movie's been released, and I can't wait to see everybody's look on their face and meet everybody. I'm a very blessed guy at age 50. Which is roughly the same age as Goku, I think. I think it is.
Something like he's close.
Something like that. I think the movie actually.
Spirit in time, and you don't age when you're died. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the 7 years you didn't age.
Well, yeah. So there's that, So, but I think roughly, it's
close. It's close. He's definitely in his mid to late 40s for sure, or maybe early 40s. I don't even remember it because they changed. Yeah. They retconned a bunch of stuff too. So that's a different conversation.
They did retcon a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
Well, I look forward to seeing you at a show. I'm going to be in your neck of the woods probably several times this year. I know I've got a lot of East Coast, Floridian area conventions. I haven't signed contracts yet, but they're coming through, and I'll probably see you there. And I'll see anybody else who's going to come out and meet me.
Yes.
So I'm real excited about it. So you want me? I'll play you out for Christmas. Maybe a little something on my horn. I don't know if it's going to sound very good over a mic, but let's try it.
Go for it.
So happy holidays, everybody.